"Get out of my house," Sarah Mitchell said, her voice barely above a whisper but steady as steel. "And if you threaten my daughter again, I'll make sure the whole world knows exactly what your family has been hiding for 60 years. Jonathan Reed's face twisted with rage. His grandfather had helped bury Marilyn Monroe's secrets. His family had spent 3 generations protecting lies worth killing for. And now this pregnant woman, this nobody with nothing left to lose, was about to destroy everything. She bought an abandoned beach house for $7,500. What she found inside was worth $255 million, but the real price would be paid in blood tears and a fight for survival she never saw coming. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Watch this story all the way to the end and drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel around the world. Now let's begin. The contractions hit Sarah Mitchell at 3 in the morning. Sharp, brutal, the kind of pain that steals your breath and makes you grab the sheets like you're falling off a cliff. "No," she gasped into the darkness. "No, no, no, not now. Please, God, not now." 8 months pregnant, 5 weeks until her due date, and her body was betraying her at the worst possible moment. She fumbled for her phone, knocking over the glass of water on her nightstand. Her fingers were shaking so badly she could barely dial. "Dr. Patterson's emergency line, how can I help you?" "I'm having contractions, Sarah managed. "Strong ones? Something's wrong with my baby." "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. How far apart are the contractions?" "I don't know, 5 minutes, maybe less. Please, you have to help me." "What's your name?" "Sarah Mitchell." "Okay, Sarah, I'm going to connect you to Dr. Patterson right now, but I need you to breathe. Deep breaths. Can you do that?" Sarah tried. She pressed her hand against her swollen belly and felt her daughter kick strong and insistent, as if demanding to know what all the fuss was about. "I'm here," she whispered to the baby. "Mama's here. We're going to be okay." But even as she said the words, she knew they might be a lie. 3 weeks ago, her husband Marcus had vanished. No warning, no explanation, just gone like smoke, taking every penny they had and leaving behind divorce papers on the kitchen counter. The yellow sticky note was still burned into her memory. 5 words that had destroyed her world. "I can't do this anymore." $47,000 in debt. A foreclosure notice giving her 21 days to vacate. A photography business in ruins after Marcus secretly stopped paying the insurance and a client sued her for losing their wedding photos. And now this. Contractions at 3 in the morning, alone in an apartment she was about to lose with no family to call and no money to her name. "Sarah?" Dr. Patterson's voice came through the phone, calm but serious. "Tell me what's happening." "Contractions. They started about 20 minutes ago. They're getting stronger." "Have you been under unusual stress lately?" Sarah laughed. It came out broken halfway to a sob. "You could say that. Stress can trigger false labor, especially in the 3rd trimester. I want you to lie down, drink some water, and try to stay as calm as possible. If the contractions continue for another hour or get closer together, I need you to go to the emergency room immediately." "Okay," Sarah said. "Okay, thank you." She hung up and lay back against the pillows, her hands cradling her belly, tears streaming down her temples into her hair. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her daughter. "I'm supposed to protect you, and I can't even keep a roof over our heads. I'm so sorry." The contractions slowed over the next hour. False labor, just like the doctor said. But sleep never came. Sarah lay in the darkness doing the math she'd done 1,000 times before. $892. That was everything she had left in the world. In 18 days, she and her unborn daughter would be homeless. She'd tried everything, called everyone. Her college roommate in Seattle couldn't help. Her former boss at the photography studio had no work to offer. The women's shelters were full with waiting lists stretching into next month. Her parents might have known what to do. Her father had always been good in a crisis, calm and steady, full of practical solutions. Her mother would have held her and told her everything would work out. But her parents had been dead for 10 years, killed by a drunk driver on a rainy Tuesday night, and Sarah had been alone ever since. She thought about the box in her closet, the one with their things. Her mother's costume pearls, her father's broken watch, that old book he'd bought at a garage sale, the one he was always saying might be worth something someday. One day, Sarah Bear, he'd told her, holding up the worn copy of The Great Gatsby, "This could pay for your college, or your wedding, or maybe just a rainy day." The rainy day had come, but the book was probably worthless. Just another empty hope in a life full of them. When the sun finally rose, Sarah dragged herself out of bed and took the bus to the public library. It was the only place with free internet, and she needed to search for something, anything, any way out of the hole she'd fallen into. She sat at a computer terminal in the back corner surrounded by other desperate people seeking answers in the digital void. Job listings she wasn't qualified for, apartment rentals she couldn't afford, government assistance programs with months-long waiting lists. Then almost by accident, she clicked on a link for county property auctions. She wasn't sure why. Desperation makes you do strange things. You grasp at straws because straws are all you have left. The listings were depressing. Condemned warehouses, tax seizures in bad neighborhoods, commercial lots that nobody wanted. But on page 9, something caught her eye. A grainy photograph showed a Spanish-style mansion perched on a cliff above the ocean. The paint was peeling. The windows were dark. Vines had consumed half the facade like nature was trying to swallow it whole. But it was the address that made Sarah's breath catch. Malibu. Oceanfront. Starting bid $7,500. Sarah blinked. She scrolled back up, certain she'd misread. A mansion in Malibu should have been worth millions. Tens of millions. The land alone would be priceless. Even as a teardown, even as rubble oceanfront property in Malibu was gold. She clicked on the listing, her heart beginning to pound. Historic property. As-is condition. No interior inspection permitted prior to sale. Property has been sealed since 1962. Buyer assumes all risks. Cash only. Sale final. Sealed since 1962. Sarah did the math. 1962 was the year Marilyn Monroe died. Her fingers moved to the keyboard before she consciously decided to search. Marilyn Monroe secret Malibu house. Most results showed the property everyone knew about, the one that had been sold and resold for decades. But buried in the search results, she found an old forum post that made her blood run cold. My grandmother lived in Malibu in the early 60s. She swore she saw Marilyn driving up the coast late at night, always alone, always heading to some house nobody knew about. After Marilyn died, men in suits came and sealed the place up, boarded the windows, chained the gates. They hired armed guards for a year. Another user had replied, "I've heard the same stories. They call it the Monroe Tomb now. Locals won't go near it. They say you can see a blonde woman walking on the beach at sunset. Always alone. Always looking out at the water like she's waiting for someone who's never coming back." Sarah sat back in her chair, her mind racing. This was insane. Completely insane. But insane was all she had left. If she could buy this property, even at the minimum bid, she could flip it. The land alone would be worth a fortune. She could pay off her debts, build a future for her daughter, escape the hole she'd been drowning in for months. The auction was in 4 days. She had $892. She needed $7,500. Sarah closed her eyes and did something she hadn't done since her parents' funeral. She prayed. Then she opened her eyes, wiped her tears, and got to work. $600, the man at the camera shop said, looking at her equipment spread across his counter. That's my final offer. These lenses alone are worth twice that, Sarah said. I paid $4,000 for this setup. You paid $4,000. I'm paying $600. Take it or leave it. Sarah's hands clenched at her sides. This equipment was all she had left of her dream. Photography had been her passion, her escape, the one thing she was genuinely good at. But dreams don't feed babies. I'll take it. The man counted out $600 in cash. Sarah stuffed the bills into her purse without looking at them. Wait, the man called as she turned to leave. I might know someone who'd pay more for this stuff. High-end collector, always looking for quality glass. How much more? Maybe $500, but he's picky. Might take a few days. I don't have a few days. Then call me Thursday morning, before 8. If he's interested, I'll have cash waiting. Sarah nodded and walked out, doing the math in her head. 600 down, 6,900 to go. The pawn shop was worse. 340, the broker said, examining her wedding ring under a magnifying glass. It cost 2,000. Lady, I don't care what it cost. I care what I can sell it for. 340. Sarah looked at the ring. The ring Marcus had slipped on her finger 3 years ago while promising to love her forever. Forever had lasted exactly 31 months. Fine, she said. 340. She sold her car next. A 12-year-old Honda with 200,000 miles and a check engine light that had been glowing for 6 months. 1,200, the mechanic offered. And that's generous. Sold. 940 plus 1,200. 2,140 total. Still more than 5,000 short. That night, Sarah sat in her apartment and made phone calls she'd sworn she'd never make. "I know it's a lot to ask, but even $100 would help. Sarah, I wish I could. I really do, but I just lost my job. I understand. Thank you anyway." Next call. "Could you loan me anything? I'll pay you back with interest. If I had it, I'd give it to you, but business is terrible right now." "I know. I'm sorry to ask." By midnight, she'd raised another $400 from a combination of small loans and selling everything she could find on Facebook. Kitchen appliances, books, furniture she wouldn't need if she was homeless anyway. Then she made a decision that made her sick to her stomach. The payday loan office opened at 8 in the morning. Sarah was waiting at the door. The man behind the counter had dead eyes and a cheap suit. He looked at her pregnant belly and smiled in a way that made her skin crawl. "How much for it?" $3,000. He slid paperwork across the counter. 400% APR. If she couldn't pay it back in 30 days, the interest would double. Then double again. Legal robbery. Exploitation of the desperate. Sarah signed anyway.
"Good luck, Vanity-Fod,"
the loan officer said as he counted out the cash. His smile said he expected to see her again drowning in debt, signing away whatever she had left. 2540 plus 3,000. 5540. Still 2,000 short. 2 days until the auction. Sarah walked out of the loan office and stood on the sidewalk, the cash heavy in her purse, her options running out. Then she remembered Mrs. Nguyen. Helen Nguyen had been her landlord for 2 years. She was the one who taped the eviction notice to Sarah's door following the law doing what the bank required. But she was also the one who'd knocked an hour later with homemade pho and tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," Mrs. Nguyen had said. "The bank makes me. I have no choice." Now Sarah stood at her door, swallowing her pride for the 100th time. Mrs. Nguyen answered in her bathrobe, her face creased with concern. "Sarah, is the baby okay?" "The baby's fine. I need to ask you something." "Come in. I'll make tea." Over green tea and silence, Sarah explained everything. The auction, the mansion, the insane gamble she was about to make. Mrs. Nguyen listened without interrupting. When Sarah finished, the old woman was quiet for a long time. "This is crazy, Hamut," she finally said. "I know. You could lose everything." "I already have nothing. You can't fall off the floor." Mrs. Nguyen shook her head, but she was smiling. She disappeared into her bedroom and returned, with an envelope. $800, my emergency fund. My husband left it for me before he died. "Mrs. Nguyen, I can't. My husband always said money is just a tool. It's only worth what you use it for." She pressed the envelope into Sarah's hands. "Use it for something good." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I'll pay you back, I swear. Just come back and tell me what you find. I want to hear the story." 5540 plus 800. 6340. Still more than 1,000 short. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She paced her apartment, running the numbers over and over, looking for money that didn't exist. At 2 in the morning, she found herself standing in front of her closet, staring at the box she hadn't opened in years. Her parents' things. She pulled it out and sat on the floor, lifting items one by one. Her mother's costume pearls. Her father's broken watch. Old photographs that made her chest ache. And at the bottom, wrapped in a plastic bag, the book. The Great Gatsby. First edition. Cover-worn pages, yellowed, spine cracked. One day, Sarah Bear. This could be worth something. Her father's voice echoed in her memory so clear it made her gasp. She'd never had it appraised. Never even thought about it, really. It was just a piece of her father, something to hold on to, not something to sell. But desperation changes everything. At 6 in the morning, Sarah called every rare book dealer in Los Angeles. Most weren't open yet. One had an emergency appraisal line. $50 for a same-day evaluation, the woman said. "Send me photos first." Sarah took pictures with her phone. The cover, the copyright page, the spine. She texted them to the number provided. 15 minutes later, her phone rang. "Where did you get this book?" "It belonged to my father. He bought it at a garage sale 20 years ago." "Miss, I need you to listen carefully. Do not sell this book to anyone until I see it in person. Do not let it out of your sight. Do you understand?" Sarah's heart was pounding. "Why, what is it?" "If this is authentic and based on these photos, I believe it is. You're holding a true first edition, first printing of The Great Gatsby. In this condition, it could be worth anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. Sarah's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor, the phone pressed to her ear, unable to speak. "Can you bring it to my shop this morning? I open at 9. I'll be there at 9:01. The book was real. The book was valuable. The book was going to save her life. Sarah wanted to cry, to scream, to call her father's grave and thank him for believing in garage sale miracles. Instead, she carefully wrapped the book back in its plastic bag and held it against her chest. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered. "Thank you." At 9:15, Sarah walked out of Whitmore Rare Books with $2,300 in cash. "You should really take this to auction," Mr. Whitmore had said, counting out the bills. "You could get more." "I don't have time for an auction." "Then at least let me give you what it's worth. $2,300. I can't go higher, but I won't go lower." Sarah had shaken his hand. "Deal. $2,300 plus $63.40, $8,640. More than enough." She stopped at the camera shop on her way to the bus station. "Your collector came through," David said, sliding $500 across the counter. He wanted the whole setup. $9,140. Sarah stood on the sidewalk, more money in her purse than she'd had in months, and felt something she'd almost forgotten how to feel: hope. The auction was tomorrow. She was ready. That night, Sarah hid the cash in a tampon box in her bathroom and tried to sleep, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. She thought about the mansion, about Marilyn Monroe, about secrets sealed away for 60 years. She thought about the forum posts, the blonde woman walking on the beach at sunset, the guards who'd watched the property for a year after Marilyn's death. What were they protecting? What was inside that house? Sarah pressed her hands against her belly, feeling her daughter kick. "Tomorrow," she whispers. "Tomorrow everything changes, I promise." She finally fell asleep around 4 in the morning and dreamed of a woman in white walking along the edge of the sea. Friday arrived gray and cold, the marine layer so thick it felt like the world was wrapped in wet gauze. Sarah put on the only professional outfit that still fit over her pregnant belly, a black maternity dress she'd bought for a job interview that never happened. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself, exhausted, terrified. 8 months pregnant and about to gamble everything on a house she'd never seen inside. "This is either genius or insanity," she told her reflection. Her reflection didn't argue. The bus ride downtown took 45 minutes. Sarah clutched her purse against her chest the entire way, hyper-aware of the cash inside. $9,000. Everything she had, everything she'd borrowed, sold, scraped together through desperation and miracles. The auction was held in a government building that smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. Fluorescent lights, metal folding chairs, a county official at a podium who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Sarah arrived 20 minutes early. Only 4 other people were there. An old man in a tracksuit already asleep, a woman her age scrolling through her phone, 2 men in cheap suits who looked like professional property flippers. Sarah sat in the back row and waited, her leg bouncing, her heart pounding. 3 properties sold before hers came up. She barely heard the details. Her entire focus was on the Malibu mansion. Finally, the official cleared his throat. Final property, 1733 Pacific Coast Highway, Malibu. Spanish-style residence, approximately 6,000 square feet, oceanfront. ASES condition, no interior access permitted. Property has been vacant since 1962. He looked up at the room. Starting bid is $7,500. Silence. Nobody moved? Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, her moment. She raised her hand. $7,500. We have 7,500 from the woman in back. Do I have 8,000? More silence. The property flippers shrugged at each other. The woman on her phone didn't look up. Going once at 7,500 from Sokamin, the official said. Going twice? 15,000. The voice came from the doorway. Sarah's head whipped around. A man stood at the entrance. Late 50s, silver hair, a suit that probably cost more than Sarah's car had. He walked into the room, slowly, deliberately, like he owned it already. His eyes scanned the room and landed on Sarah, on her pregnant belly. His lip curled slightly. We have 15,000, the official said. Do I have 15 out? Sarah's mind raced. 15,000 was almost double what she had. She couldn't match it. She should walk away. But something about this man made her skin crawl. The way he'd walked in at the last second, the way he looked at her like she was an insect in his path. 55, she heard herself say. The man's eyebrows rose slightly, surprised. 20,000, he said flatly. Do I have 25? The official asked. Sarah's throat was dry. She had 9,000, Not 25,000, not even close, but she opened her mouth anyway. 25. The man turned to face her fully now. His eyes were cold, calculating. 30,000. Sarah's stomach dropped. This was insane. She was bidding money she didn't have against someone who clearly had unlimited resources. But before she could concede, the official's phone rang. He frowned, answered, listened. His expression changed. "Mr. Reed," he said carefully, "I need you to step outside. There's an urgent matter." The man Reed, his jaw tightened. "We're in the middle of an auction." "Now, sir, it's not a request." Reed shot Sarah a look of pure venom. Then he followed the official out of the room. Sarah sat frozen, her heart pounding, having no idea what was happening. Minutes passed. She could hear heated voices in the hallway, muffled but intense. 5 minutes. 10. Finally, the official returned. Alone. His face was flushed. His hands weren't quite steady. "We're resuming," he announced. "Mr. Reed has withdrawn from bidding. Current bid stands at 15,500 to the woman in back." Sarah couldn't breathe. Going once, going twice. She watched the gavel rise. Sold $15,500. The gavel came down, and Sarah's entire world shifted on its axis. "Wait," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't have 15,000. I bid more than I could afford. I only have 7,500 for the minimum." The official sighed. "Then we revert to your original bid, 7,500. Can you pay that now?" "Yes?" Sarah breathed. "Yes." She counted out the cash with trembling fingers. $7,500, leaving her with $1,640 to survive on until she could flip this property. The official handed her 2 keys on a tarnished ring. "It's yours. God help you." "What do you mean, Had?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "That man who was bidding against you, Jonathan Reed, his family has connections to that property going back decades. They've tried to buy it every time it's come up for auction. This is the first time they've failed. Why do they want it so badly? I don't know, but I know they've spent 60 years making sure nobody gets inside that house, and now you own it." He looked at her pregnant belly. "Be careful, miss. Some doors are sealed for a reason." Sarah left the building in a daze, the keys heavy in her pocket. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. She'd bought Marilyn Monroe's secret house for $7,500. Now she had to go inside. The bus to Malibu took 2 hours. Sarah sat in the back, her hands clasped over her belly, watching the city give way to coastline. The Pacific Coast Highway wound along the cliffs like a ribbon connecting the ordinary world to something else entirely. The houses grew larger, older, more private. Walls and gates and decades of secrets. When her phone's GPS said she'd arrived, Sarah almost missed the entrance entirely. A gap in an overgrown hedge. Rusted iron gates hanging open on broken hinges. A faded no trespassing sign dangling from a chain. She got off at the next stop and walked back. The gravel driveway was swallowed by weeds taller than her knees. Nobody had walked this path in years. Sarah started climbing. Her back ached, her feet ached, her baby kicked in protest. "I know," she murmured. "Almost there." Then she crested the hill and saw the house. It rose before her like something from a fever dream. Spanish colonial architecture going gray with decay. Red tile roof missing pieces. Vines consuming half the facade like a creature slowly digesting its prey. The front door was massive. Dark wood with iron fixtures. Sarah stood there, catching her breath, staring at the mansion that was somehow impossibly hers. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around. This place felt wrong. Not just abandoned. Mourning. But she'd spent everything. There was no going back. She walked to the front door and tried the keys. The smaller one fit a lock she hadn't noticed, nearly hidden by rust. Click. The chain rattled to the ground. Sarah put her shoulder against the door and pushed. The hinges screamed like something waking from a long sleep. Then she was standing on the threshold looking into darkness. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through 60 years of shadow. A grand entrance hall frozen in time. Black and white marble floor covered in dust and dead leaves. A chandelier thick with grime. A curved staircase disappearing upward into nothing. But what stopped Sarah's breath was the furniture. Still here. All of it. Draped in white sheets like ghosts waiting for someone to come home. Sarah stepped inside. The floor creaked under her weight. The air was thick stale, holding the particular silence of a place that had kept secrets for too long. She moved deeper into the house. A living room to her left, furniture draped, a fireplace big enough to stand in, A dining room to her right, a table set for 12 covered in decades of dust, and everywhere the feeling of being watched. Sarah climbed the stairs slowly, one hand on the banister, one hand on her belly. Each step groaned in protest. The second floor had 5 bedrooms, all frozen in 1962. Beds made with linens turned gray. Closets full of clothes that moths had turned to lace. The master bedroom was at the end of the hall. Sarah pushed open the door and stopped breathing. This room was different. Less dust. The air heavier somehow, like it had been waiting. A vanity with a mirror still intact. A 4-poster bed with heavy curtains. French doors leading to a balcony above the ocean. Sarah walked to the vanity. Her flashlight revealed perfume bottles dried and cracked, jewelry boxes, hairbrushes, and in one brush caught in the bristle strands of blonde hair. Sarah's hands shook as she opened the nearest jewelry box. Inside on rotted velvet lay a charm bracelet. Gold. Delicate, with tiny charms including theatrical masks showing comedy and tragedy. Sarah recognized it. She'd seen it in photographs, in documentaries. Marilyn Monroe had worn that bracelet. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "Oh my God, this was real. This had been Marilyn's house, her secret refuge, the place nobody knew about, and Sarah owned it. She forced herself to keep moving, to document everything. She photographed the vanity, the jewelry, the clothes in the closet. That's when she noticed the wall. At the back of the walk-in closet, the plaster looked different, newer, smoother, a slightly different shade of white. Sarah stepped closer, ran her hand along the surface. Hollow. She knocked. Definitely hollow. Her pulse spiked. She searched the edges, looking for seams. There, a tiny gap in the corner, almost invisible. She pressed against the wall. Nothing. She ran her hands along the seam, searching for a trigger. Her fingers found an indentation. Small. Shoulder height. She pressed. Something clicked. The panel shifted, then swung open on hidden hinges. Beyond it, darkness, and stone stairs spiraling down into the earth. Sarah stood at the threshold, her flashlight beam dying before it reached the bottom. She was 8 months pregnant, alone, in an abandoned mansion, and there was a secret passage leading underground. Every rational thought told her to leave, to call someone, to come back with help. But Sarah Mitchell had spent the last month being told no, being told it was impossible, being told she should give up. She was done listening. She put her hand on her belly and felt her daughter kick. "Okay, little one," she whispered. "Let's find out what they've been hiding for 60 years. And she started down the stairs. The stone steps were cold beneath Sarah's feet. She counted them as she descended. 1, 2, 3. Each one taking her deeper into darkness, deeper into secrets that had been buried for 62 years. Her phone's flashlight barely cut through the black. The air grew cooler with every step. Damper. Like descending into a tomb. 14, 15, 16. Her baby kicked hard as if protesting the journey. Sarah pressed her free hand against her belly. "I know," she whispered, "but we have to see." 20 steps, 21. Then her foot hit flat ground, and the stairs ended. Sarah raised her phone, sweeping the beam across the space before her, and her legs nearly gave out. The vault was enormous, maybe 30 feet square, carved directly into the bedrock beneath the mansion. But it wasn't the size that stole her breath. It was what filled it. Garment racks lined every wall, floor to ceiling, holding clothes wrapped in protective coverings. Glass display cases stood in the center of the room, their surfaces clouded with decades of dust, but somehow still intact. Filing cabinets, wooden crates, and along the back wall, mounted on industrial shelving, dozens of film canisters. Sarah moved forward on shaking legs, her flashlight revealing more with each step. She approached the nearest display case and wiped the dust away with her sleeve. Inside, draped on a mannequin, was a dress, white, pleated, halter neck. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. She knew this dress. Everyone in the world knew this dress. It was the dress from the 7-Year Itch. The dress that had billowed over the subway grate in the most famous photograph in Hollywood history. "No," Sarah breathed. "That's impossible. That dress is in a museum. That dress sold at auction for But here it was, right in front of her, real, tangible. She moved to the next case, her heart hammering so hard she could hear it echoing off the stone walls. A pink gown, beaded, shimmering even under the grime. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. The next case held a nude-colored dress covered in crystals. The dress Marilyn had worn to sing Happy Birthday to President Kennedy. Sarah sank to her knees on the cold stone floor, unable to stand any longer. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "These dresses were sold. They're in private collections. They're documented. But the evidence was in front of her eyes. Either every authenticated Marilyn Monroe costume in the world was a fake, or these were duplicates that nobody knew existed, or these were the originals and everything else was the forgery." Sarah's mind raced through the implications. If these were real, if these were the actual costumes, they would be worth millions, tens of millions, maybe more. She forced herself to stand, to keep exploring, to document everything. The filing cabinets drew her next. She opened the first drawer with trembling hands. Folders. Dozens of them, each labeled in neat handwriting. Personal correspondence. Financial records. Contracts. Photographs. Private. Sarah pulled out the photographs folder and opened it. The first image made her gasp. Marilyn Monroe, young and radiant, laughing at a beach bonfire. No makeup. No performance. Just pure unguarded joy. The next photo showed Marilyn reading in a garden, completely absorbed in a book, unaware she was being photographed. These weren't publicity shots, these were real moments. Private moments. The woman behind the icon. Sarah carefully replaced the folder and turned to the film canisters. Each one was labeled with a title and date. Screen test, unknown, production, 1962. Personal recording, July 1962. Then her flashlight landed on one canister that made her blood run cold. Personal recording, August 4th, 1962. August 4th, the day before Marilyn Monroe died. Sarah reached for it with shaking hands, then stopped. Whatever was on this film had been hidden for 62 years, protected, sealed away in a vault that someone had gone to enormous trouble to keep secret. This wasn't just valuable, this was dangerous. She needed help, she needed experts, she needed to understand what she'd found before she did anything else. Sarah photographed everything she could reach. The costumes, the filing cabinets, the film canisters, her phone's memory filled with images that could rewrite Hollywood history. Then she climbed back up. Those 21 steps emerged into the master bedroom and carefully closed the hidden panel behind her. The click of the lock echoed like a gunshot in the silence. Sarah checked her phone. She'd been in the vault for almost 3 hours. The sun was setting outside the French doors, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple over the Pacific. She needed to get home. She needed to think. She needed to figure out what to do next. But as she walked through the mansion toward the front door, something felt different. Wrong. A sound. Faint. Coming from downstairs. Footsteps. Sarah froze her blood, turning to ice. She was supposed to be alone. The house had been sealed for 60 years. Nobody knew she was here. The footsteps grew louder, closer, moving through the entrance hall below. Sarah pressed herself against the wall, her hand over her mouth to stifle her breathing. Her baby kicked frantically as if sensing her fear. A man's voice echoed up the stairwell. "I know you're here, Miss Mitchell. My people saw you enter hours ago. There's no point hiding." Jonathan Reed, the man from the auction, the man whose family had been trying to buy this house for decades. "Come down," Reed called. "Let's talk like civilized people. I have a business proposition for you." Sarah's mind raced. She could try to escape through the balcony, but she was 8 months pregnant. There was no way she could climb down. She could hide. But Reed clearly had people watching. They knew she was here. Or she could face him. Sarah Mitchell had spent her whole life avoiding confrontation, letting other people make decisions for her, backing down when things got hard. Look where that had gotten her. She straightened her spine, put her hand on her belly, and walked to the top of the stairs. Reed stood in the entrance hall below, flanked by 2 large men in dark suits. His silver hair was perfect. His expression was calm, controlled. The look of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. "There you are," he said, smiling. "I was beginning to think you'd gotten lost in this old place." "You're trespassing," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "This is my property." "So it is. Congratulations on your purchase. Though I have to say I'm curious how a pregnant woman with no job, no husband, and no money managed to outbid me. Desperation makes people resourceful." Reed laughed. It was a cold sound, utterly without warmth. "Indeed it does. May I come up? Or would you prefer to come down? I find negotiations work better face to face." "We have nothing to negotiate." "Oh, I think we do." Reed began climbing the stairs, his men staying at the bottom. "You see, Miss Mitchell, this house has been in my family's care for a very long time. Not ownership care. We've been protecting it, maintaining it, keeping it safe from curious eyes." "Protecting what exactly?" Reed reached the top of the stairs and stood facing her. Up close, his eyes were pale gray, almost colorless, like looking into fog. "You've been in the vault," he said. It wasn't a question. Sarah's heart stopped. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't insult my intelligence. I've been monitoring this property for 30 years, waiting for exactly this situation. The previous owner, a trust established by my grandfather, made certain provisions. Cameras, sensors. The moment you opened that hidden door, I received an alert." Sarah felt sick. He knew. He knew everything. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want to buy this house and everything in it. I'm prepared to offer you $2 million cash, tonight." $2 million. The number hit Sarah like a physical blow. $2 million would pay off all her debts, give her daughter a future, solve every problem she had. "Why, Kai Kam?" she managed. "What's in that vault that's worth $2 million to you?" Reed's expression flickered. Just for a moment. Something dark moving behind those pale eyes. "Let's just say my family has a vested interest in keeping certain secrets buried. Secrets that could be embarrassing if they came to light." Embarrassing to whom? To everyone. To Marilyn's legacy. To Hollywood history. To people who are still alive whose careers and reputations depend on certain narratives remaining unchanged. Sarah thought about the film canister. August 4th, 1962, the day before Marilyn died. "What's on those recordings?" she asked quietly. Reed's smile vanished. "That's not your concern." "It is now. I own them." "For the moment." $2 million, Miss Mitchell. Take it. Walk away. Have your baby in a nice house with money in the bank and never think about this place again." Sarah looked at him. At his expensive suit and his cold eyes and his absolute certainty that money could buy anything. She thought about Marilyn Monroe, a woman who'd been used, controlled, silenced by men exactly like this one. She thought about her daughter growing inside her who would one day ask what kind of person her mother was. She thought about her father's book, the one that had saved her when she needed a miracle. About Mrs. Nguyen's $800. About everyone who had helped her get here betting on her when she had nothing. "No," Sarah said. Reed blinked. "I'm sorry. No, I'm not selling." For a long moment, Reed just stared at her. Then he laughed again, but this time there was no pretense of warmth. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." "Then explain it to me." "My grandfather was one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood history. He knew everyone, politicians, mob bosses, studio heads, and Marilyn Monroe knew them too. She knew them in ways that could destroy legacies, reveal crimes, topple empires. She kept records, recordings, evidence." "Evidence of what?" Reed's jaw tightened. "Of things that don't need to be made public, things that would hurt innocent people, descendants, families. Or things that would hurt guilty people, people who got away with something." "Be very careful, Miss Mitchell. Was she murdered?" The question hung in the air between them like smoke. Reed's face went completely blank. Controlled. A mask. Marilyn Monroe died of a barbiturate overdose. That's what the coroner determined. That's what history recorded. That's not what I asked. You're in over your head. Take the money." "No." Reed stepped closer. Close enough that Sarah could smell his cologne. Expensive. Suffocating. $3 million? He said quietly. "Final offer?" The answer is still no. "Then you're making a serious mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." Reed studied her face for a long moment. Whatever he was looking for, he apparently didn't find it. "My grandfather spent 60 years protecting this secret," he said. "He believed it was worth killing for. I hope for your sake and your daughter's sake that you're not naive enough to think I wouldn't do the same." Sarah's blood ran cold, but she didn't look away. "Get out of my house." Reed smiled. Cold, predatory. "This isn't over, Miss Mitchell. Not even close." He turned and walked down the stairs. His men followed. Sarah heard the front door open and close. She stood alone in the darkness, her hands shaking, her heart pounding her baby, kicking wildly against her ribs. She'd just turned down $3 million from a man who'd implied he would kill to keep his secrets. She'd either made the bravest decision of her life or signed her own death warrant. Sarah pulled out her phone and dialed the only number she could think of. "Public Library, how may I help you?" "I need to find an expert on Marilyn Monroe. Someone who authenticates memorabilia. Someone legitimate." "Ma'am, the library is closing in 10 minutes." "Please, it's an emergency." A sigh on the other end. then the click of keyboard keys. "There's a Dr. Helena Vasquez at UCLA. She's written several books on Monroe. I can give you her university email." "That's perfect, thank you." Sarah wrote down the address and hung up. Then she walked through the mansion one more time, locking every door, checking every window. She was alone. For now, but she knew Reed would be back. Men like him didn't take no for an answer. They just changed tactics. Sarah left the house as the last light faded from the sky. She locked the front door behind her and walked down the overgrown driveway to the main road. The bus stop was a quarter-mile away. She walked it in the darkness, one hand on her belly, one hand clutching her phone. Every shadow seemed threatening. Every car that passed made her flinch. But she kept walking. She had something Reed wanted. Something worth millions. Something worth killing for. And she wasn't going to let him have it. Sarah spent the next 3 hours on the bus composing the most important email of her life. "Dr. Vasquez, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I recently purchased a property in Malibu that I believe belonged to Marilyn Monroe. I found items that may be of significant historical importance. I need expert authentication. This is urgent and must remain confidential. Please contact me as soon as possible." She attached 3 photographs: the white dress, the charm bracelet, a page from what appeared to be Marilyn's handwriting. Then she hit send and prayed. It was nearly midnight when Sarah got back to her apartment. She was exhausted, starving. Her feet were swollen and her back felt like it was on fire, but she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Reed's face, his pale eyes, his threats. My grandfather believed it was worth killing for. At 2 a.m, her phone buzzed. A reply from Dr. Vasquez. "Miss Mitchell, I receive messages like this frequently. Most turn out to be hoaxes or misidentifications. However, something about your photographs intrigued me. If what you're showing me is authentic, this could be the most significant Marilyn Monroe discovery ever made. I'm flying to Los Angeles tomorrow. Meet me at the UCLA Faculty Club at noon. Come alone. Tell no one." Sarah read the message 3 times, her heart racing. She was in. Someone believed her. Someone was coming to help. She tried to sleep, but managed only a few restless hours. Her dreams were filled with blonde women in sealed vaults and men with pale eyes, who smiled while they threatened. At 6 a.m, she woke to pounding on her door. Sarah's heart seized. Reed. He'd found where she lived. She grabbed her phone ready to call 911. Sarah, it's Mrs. Nguyen. Please open." Relief flooded through her. She opened the door. Mrs. Nguyen stood in the hallway, her face pale, her hands trembling. "Mrs. Nguyen, what's wrong?" "A man came to see me, an hour ago. He asked questions about you, where you work, who your friends are, whether you have family." Sarah's blood ran cold. "What did he look like?" "Young, maybe 30, dark suit, very polite, but—" Mrs. Nguyen shivered. His eyes were not polite. His eyes were calculating, like a shark. Reed was having her investigated, mapping her life, finding her weaknesses. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. I said you were a good tenant, and I knew nothing else, but Sarah—" Mrs. Nguyen grabbed her hands. "What have you gotten yourself into?" "I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to find out." "Be careful. That man, he scared me, and I don't scare easy." Sarah hugged her. "I will. Thank you for warning me." After Mrs. Nguyen left, Sarah stood in her apartment thinking. Reed was moving fast, gathering information, probably planning his next approach. She needed to move faster. She showered dressed in the most professional outfit she could find that still fit and took 2 buses to UCLA. The faculty club was elegant in an old money way, all dark wood and leather chairs. Sarah felt completely out of place. A pregnant woman in a cheap dress surrounded by professors and academics. Then she saw a woman rise from a corner table and walk toward her. Dr. Helena Vasquez was in her early 60s with silver-streaked hair and sharp, intelligent eyes behind designer glasses. She moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly who she was and didn't care what anyone else thought. "Miss Mitchell." "Dr. Vasquez, thank you for meeting me." "Show me what you have." No small talk, no pleasantries. Sarah liked her immediately. They sat at the corner table and Sarah pulled out her phone. She showed Dr. Vasquez every photograph she'd taken in the vault, narrating as she went. "This is the white dress from the 7-Year Itch. At least I think it is. And this is the pink gown from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And this," she pulled up the image of the film canisters. "This was labeled August 4th, 1962. Dr. Vasquez's face went pale. "Stop," she said quietly. "Don't show me any more. Not here." "What's wrong?" Dr. Vasquez looked around the room, then leaned closer. Do you have any idea what you found? I was hoping you'd tell me. If these photographs are real, if what you're showing me is authentic, you've discovered something that could change everything we know about Marilyn Monroe, about her life, about her death. Dr. Vasquez's voice dropped even lower. About the people who may have been responsible for ending it. Sarah's throat was dry. So it's valuable, Dr. Vasquez laughed softly. Valuable, that's one word for it. The white dress alone sold at auction for $5 million. But that dress was supposedly authenticated decades ago. If this one is real, if this is the original, then either every expert in the world has been wrong for 60 years, or someone created fakes and sold them, and kept the originals hidden, for some reason important enough to build a secret vault beneath a secret house. Sarah thought about Reed, about his grandfather, about 60 years of protecting secrets. There's more, she said. A man named Jonathan Reed has been threatening me. He offered me $3 million to sell everything and walk away. Dr. Vasquez's expression hardened. Reed? Of course. You know him. I know of his family. His grandfather was Harrison Reed, one of the most powerful studio executives in Hollywood history. He was also rumored to be connected to organized crime, to political corruption, to... She hesitated. To Marilyn Monroe in ways that have never been fully documented. He told me his grandfather believed these secrets were worth killing for. He may have been right. Dr. Vasquez removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. Miss Mitchell, I need to see this vault in person. I need to examine everything. But you need to understand what you're getting into. If what you found proves what I think it might prove, you won't just be making enemies of the Reed family. You'll be threatening the legacy of some of the most powerful people in American history. I don't care. Dr. Vasquez looked at her with surprise. You don't care. I've lost everything. My husband left me. My business collapsed. I'm about to be evicted. I'm 8 months pregnant with nothing but this house and whatever's inside it. Sarah's voice was steady. 2 weeks ago, I was ready to give up. I had $800 to my name and no future. Then I found that auction listing and I bet everything on one impossible chance. Why? Sarah thought about the question. About the real answer. Because I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of letting other people decide what I deserve. I'm tired of surviving when I should be living. She looked Dr. Vasquez in the eye. Marilyn Monroe died 62 years ago, and someone has been hiding her truth ever since. They thought no one would ever find it, but I did, and I'm not going to let them bury it again. Dr. Vasquez studied her for a long moment, then she smiled. When can you take me to the vault? Tomorrow morning. I'll rearrange my schedule. And Miss Mitchell, you should know that if this discovery is what I think it is, you're going to need protection. Legal protection, physical protection, media protection. I have contacts who can help. I can't afford protection. You won't have to. If this is real, you're about to become one of the most important figures in Hollywood history. People will pay to protect you just to be associated with the discovery. They exchanged phone numbers and made plans to meet the next morning at 7. Dr. Vasquez would bring a colleague, a forensic authenticator, who specialized in textiles and historical artifacts. Sarah left the faculty club feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real hope. But that hope lasted exactly 4 hours. She was walking from the bus stop to her apartment when she noticed the car. A black sedan parked across the street, engine running. Sarah kept walking, her pace quickening. The car pulled away from the curb and began following her. Slowly, deliberately. Sarah's heart pounded. She pulled out her phone, ready to call 911. The car accelerated, passing her, then stopped at the corner ahead. A man got out of the passenger side. Young, dark suit, polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. The man Mrs. Nguyen had described. Miss Mitchell, he called. Mr. Reed would like another word. Sarah looked around. The street was empty, no witnesses, no help. I already gave Mr. Reed my answer. He'd like to discuss a revised offer, somewhere more comfortable. I'm not going anywhere with you. The man's smile didn't waver, but something in his eyes shifted, became colder. Miss Mitchell, I'm going to be direct with you. Mr. Reed is a patient man, but his patience has limits. He's authorized me to offer you $5 million, cash, tonight. The answer is still no. That's unfortunate. The man glanced at her pregnant belly. You're due soon, aren't you, first child? Sarah's blood turned to ice. A baby needs a safe home, a mother who's not stressed, A family that's not in danger. He smiled again. $5 million would provide all of that. Think about your daughter, Miss Mitchell. Are you threatening my baby? I'm offering you an opportunity. The threat is what happens if you refuse. Sarah's hands were shaking, her vision blurred with rage and fear. Get away from me. I'll give you 24 hours to reconsider. After that, Mr. Reed will be forced to pursue alternative approaches. The man got back in the car. It pulled away, disappearing around the corner. Sarah stood on the sidewalk alone, trembling. 24 hours. She had 24 hours before Reed escalated. She needed to move faster. That night, Sarah didn't sleep. She packed a bag with everything essential. Clothes, documents, her phone charger, the few photographs of her parents she still had. She texted Mrs. Nguyen, I need to leave for a few days. Please don't tell anyone where I've gone. I'm safe, but I need to be careful. Mrs. Nguyen replied immediately, I understand. Be safe. I pray for you and the baby. At 4 a.m, Sarah left her apartment for what might be the last time. She took a taxi to a cheap motel in a neighborhood where no one would think to look for her. She paid cash, used a fake name, locked herself in a room with a view of the parking lot, and sat by the window, watching for black sedans. At 6:30, she called Dr. Vasquez. I need to move up our meeting. Today, right now. What happened? Reed sent someone. They threatened my baby. I have 24 hours before things get worse. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? Sarah gave her the motel address. I'll be there in an hour. Don't open the door for anyone else. Sarah sat in that motel room, her hands on her belly, watching the sun rise over Los Angeles, and thought about the woman who had built that vault 62 years ago. Marilyn Monroe had been afraid too. She'd known powerful people wanted her silenced. She'd hidden evidence, protected truth, prepared for the worst. And then she'd died anyway. But her secrets had survived. Sealed in the darkness, waiting for someone brave enough or desperate enough to find them. Sarah wasn't sure which category she fell into anymore. Maybe both. Maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was that she wasn't going to let them win. Not Reed. Not his grandfather's ghost. Not 60 years of lies and cover-ups. She was going to expose the truth. And whatever happened next, her daughter would know that her mother had fought. At exactly 7:30, someone knocked on the motel room door. Sarah checked the peephole. Dr. Vasquez stood outside, accompanied by a man carrying professional equipment cases. Sarah opened the door. Are you ready? Dr. Vasquez asked. Sarah grabbed her bag. Let's go see what Marilyn Monroe wanted the world to know. They drove to Malibu in Dr. Vasquez's rental car, Sarah in the passenger seat, the forensic authenticator, a man named Thomas Chen in the back with his equipment. Nobody spoke much. The tension was too thick for small talk. Sarah watched the rearview mirror, constantly looking for black sedans for any sign they were being followed. Dr. Vasquez noticed. Are you expecting them? I'm expecting anything at this point. Smart. That's how you survive this. They arrived at the property just after 8 a.m. The mansion looked different in daylight, less haunted, more sad. A beautiful thing left to decay. Dr. Vasquez stood at the bottom of the driveway, staring up at the house. My God, she whispered. It's real. I've spent 30 years researching Marilyn Monroe, and I never knew this place existed. Nobody did. That was the point. They climbed the driveway together, Sarah leading the way. Her back ached. Her feet were swollen. The baby was pressing against her bladder with what felt like deliberate cruelty. But she kept moving. At the front door, Sarah used her keys. The hinges screamed again as it opened. Thomas Chen let out a low whistle as they entered the entrance hall. 62 years, he said. 62 years sealed up like a time capsule. The vault is upstairs, Sarah said. In the master bedroom closet. They climbed the stairs single file, Sarah gripping the banister, Dr. Vasquez close behind Thomas, bringing up the rear with his equipment cases. The master bedroom was exactly as Sarah had left it. The vanity, the jewelry, the blonde hair still caught in the brush. Dr. Vasquez approached the vanity and picked up the charm bracelet with trembling hands. This is hers, she breathed. I've seen photographs of this bracelet hundreds of times. She wore it constantly in the last years of her life. She looked at Sarah. Where's the vault? Sarah walked to the closet and pressed the hidden trigger. The panel swung open, revealing the stone stairs descending into darkness. Thomas turned on a high-powered flashlight and went first. Then Dr. Vasquez. Then Sarah, moving carefully, one hand on the wall for balance. 21 steps down into the earth. And then they were standing in Marilyn Monroe's secret archive. Dr. Vasquez didn't speak for a long time. She just stood in the center of the vault, her flashlight beam moving from the garment racks to the display cases to the filing cabinets to the film canisters, tears streaming silently down her face. "Helena," Thomas said quietly, "are you okay?" 30 years, she whispered. "I've spent 30 years trying to understand who Marilyn Monroe really was. Every book I wrote, every lecture I gave, I always felt like I was missing something, like the real story was hidden somewhere just out of reach." She looked at Sarah. "You found it. You found everything." "I got lucky." "No, luck is finding a $20 bill on the sidewalk. This is something else. This is..." She shook her head. "I don't have words for what this is." Thomas was already unpacking his equipment. Ultraviolet lights, magnifying lenses, chemical testing kits. "I'm going to need hours," he said. "Maybe days. If you want full authentication, I need to examine every piece individually." "We don't have days," Sarah said. "We might not even have hours." "Then I'll start with the most important items, the dresses, the jewelry, the documents." He looked at the film canisters. "Those are going to require specialized equipment I don't have with me." "Start with what you can," Dr. Vasquez said. "I'll begin cataloging the paper materials." For the next 4 hours, they worked in focused silence. Thomas examined the white dress under ultraviolet light, checking stitching patterns, fabric composition wear marks. Dr. Vasquez photographed every page of every document in the filing cabinets, her expression growing more troubled with each new discovery. Sarah helped where she could, but mostly she sat on the cold stone floor, her back against the wall, watching two experts uncover 62 years of buried truth. Around noon, Thomas looked up from his examination of the Kennedy gown. "It's real," he said quietly. "Every piece I've examined so far is genuine. The fabric, the construction, the wear patterns, everything is consistent with 1950s and early 1960s Hollywood costume design. These aren't reproductions. These aren't forgeries. These are the actual garments." "But the white dress was sold at auction in 2011, Sarah said. "It's in a private collection." "Then whoever bought it in 2011 bought a fake, or a reproduction, or a second version made for publicity." Thomas shook his head. "But this dress, the one in this vault, this is the original. I'd stake my professional reputation on it." "How is that possible?" Dr. Vasquez looked up from the documents she was examining. "Because someone switched them," she said. "Someone, probably Harrison Reed, had copies made of Marilyn's most famous costumes. The copies went into the official estate. The originals came here." "Why would he do that?" "Because of what else is in this vault." Dr. Vasquez held up a folder. "I've been reading Marilyn's private correspondence. Letters she wrote but never sent. Some of them are addressed to President Kennedy, some to his brother Robert, some to people whose names I recognize as major organized crime figures." Sarah's throat tightened. "What do the letters say?" "She was keeping records, documenting conversations, meetings, promises that were made and broken." Dr. Vasquez's voice was barely above a whisper. "She knew she was in danger. She knew too much about too many powerful people, and she was trying to protect herself the only way she knew how. By hiding evidence. By creating insurance. She writes in one letter, 'If anything happens to me, look in the safe house. Everything is there. Everything they don't want the world to know.'" Sarah thought about the film canister labeled August 4th, 1962. "The recordings," she said. "We need to know, Paito, what's on those recordings." "We need specialized equipment for that," Thomas said. "Old film stock is incredibly fragile. If we try to play it without proper preparation, we could destroy it." "How long?" "To do it safely, a week, maybe 2. "We don't have a week." Dr. Vasquez stood up, brushing dust from her knees. "Then we prioritize. We take the most important items with us. The dresses can be authenticated and made public immediately. That puts a spotlight on the discovery, makes it impossible for Reed to bury. The recordings we handle carefully properly once we have protection." "What kind of protection?" "Media, legal, political, if necessary. Once the world knows what you found, Reed can't touch you without exposing himself." Sarah nodded slowly. It made sense. Go public with enough to create a firestorm, then use that attention as a shield while they uncovered the rest. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." They spent the next hour selecting items to take. The white dress, the Kennedy gown, 3 of the most significant letters. A jewelry box containing pieces that could be directly tied to Marilyn through photographic evidence. Thomas packed everything with obsessive care, wrapping each item in acid-free tissue, placing them in climate-controlled cases he'd brought specifically for this purpose. They were almost finished when Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your 24 hours are up. Last chance. $5 million. Take it now or face the consequences. Sarah showed the message to Dr. Vasquez. We need to leave, Dr. Vasquez said immediately. Now. They gathered the cases and climbed back up the stairs. Sarah closed the hidden panel, heard the lock click into place. They were walking through the master bedroom when they heard it. Footsteps downstairs. Multiple people moving through the entrance hall. Is there another way out? Thomas whispered. The balcony, Sarah said. But I can't climb down. I'm 8 months pregnant. Then we don't climb, we hide. Dr. Vasquez shook her head. They'll search the whole house. They know we're here. Then we face them, Sarah said. That's insane. Maybe, but I'm tired of running. She walked to the top of the stairs before Dr. Vasquez could stop her. Jonathan Reed stood in the entrance hall, flanked by 4 men this time. The young man in the dark suit who had threatened Sarah on the street. 3 others she didn't recognize. Miss Mitchell, Reed called up. I see you've brought friends. I've brought experts. They've authenticated everything. The dresses, the documents, the evidence of what your family has been hiding for 60 years. Reed's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his pale eyes. I warned you, he said. I gave you every opportunity to walk away. And I told you no. My answer hasn't changed. Then I'm afraid we're going to have a problem. The men with Reed started up the stairs. Stay back. Sarah said, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. I'm recording everything. Audio and video. It's uploading to the cloud right now. You touch any of us and the whole world sees it. She was bluffing about the upload. Her phone barely had signal in this house, but Reed didn't know that. The men hesitated, looking to Reed for guidance. She's lying, Reed said. Are you willing to bet your family's reputation on that? Sarah held up her phone. Smile for the camera, Mr. Reed. Tell the world what you're about to do to a pregnant woman. Reed's jaw tightened. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then he smiled. Cold, controlled. You're smarter than I gave you credit for, Miss Mitchell. But smart only gets you so far. It's gotten me this far. Indeed. And now you have evidence that could destroy my family. Evidence you're planning to make public. Reed straightened his tie. I can't allow that to happen. You can't stop it. We'll see. Reed turned to his men. Let them go, for now. The men stepped aside, clearing a path down the stairs. Sarah looked at Dr. Vasquez and Thomas, who were standing behind her, clutching the equipment cases. Go, she said quietly. Get to the car. I'm right behind you. They moved quickly, descending the stairs, passing Reed and his men without making eye contact. Sarah followed, one hand on the railing, one hand on her phone. As she passed Reed, he spoke quietly, just for her ears. This isn't mercy, Miss Mitchell. This is strategy. I know where you live. I know where your landlord lives. I know every person who's helped you since your husband abandoned you. Sarah's blood ran cold. By tomorrow morning, you'll have nothing and no one, and then you'll beg me to take that evidence off your hands. Sarah kept walking, out the front door, down the driveway, all the way to the car where Dr. Vasquez was already behind the wheel, engine running. She climbed into the passenger seat and slammed the door. Go, she said. Drive, now. Dr. Vasquez hit the gas. The tires sprayed gravel as they sped down the driveway. Sarah watched the mansion shrink in the side mirror until it disappeared behind the overgrown hedges. What did he say to you? Dr. Vasquez asked. He's going to destroy everyone who's helped me. Mrs. Nguyen, anyone connected to this. He's going to burn my entire life down. Then we burn his first. Sarah looked at her. What? We go public today, right now. We call every journalist I know, every media outlet that will listen. We show them the dresses, the documents, everything we have. We make so much noise that Reed can't make a move without the whole world watching. Will it work? It has to work. It's the only play we have left. They drove straight to UCLA. Doctor, Vasquez made phone calls the entire way, speaking rapidly to people whose names Sarah didn't recognize. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, they were set up in a conference room in the university's arts building. 3 authenticated costumes on display stands. Documents spread across a table. Dr. Vasquez's prepared statement ready to read. 12 journalists had been invited. Representatives from the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, CNN, BBC, and half a dozen entertainment outlets. Sarah stood in a corner watching the reporters file in, watching Dr. Vasquez shake hands and make introductions. Her phone buzzed. A photo, Mrs. Nguyen's apartment building. Then a text. Remember what I said? Sarah's hands started shaking. I have to make a call, she told Dr. Vasquez. She stepped into the hallway and dialed Mrs. Nguyen's number. It rang 5 times before the old woman answered. "Sarah? Mrs. Nguyen, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Why?" "Is anyone outside your building? Have you seen any strange cars?" A pause. "There's a black car parked across the street. It's been there for an hour." "Listen to me carefully. I need you to leave your apartment. Right now. Go somewhere safe. A friend's house, a hotel, anywhere Reed doesn't know about." "Sarah, you're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. But please, Mrs. Nguyen, these people are dangerous. I can't let anything happen to you because of me." Another pause. Then, "I have a sister in Pasadena. I can stay with her." "Go there now. Don't tell anyone where you're going. I'll call you when it's safe." "Sarah, what have you found?" "The truth, and it's worth killing for." Sarah hung up and stood in the hallway, her back against the wall, trying to breathe. Reed was making his moves, targeting anyone connected to her. She'd been right to go public immediately, but would it be enough? She walked back into the conference room just as Dr. Vasquez was beginning her statement. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming on such short notice. What I'm about to show you will change everything we thought we knew about Hollywood's most famous icon." The cameras started rolling. 3 days ago, a woman named Sarah Mitchell purchased an abandoned property in Malibu for $7,500. Inside that property, she discovered something that has been hidden for 62 years. A secret vault built by Marilyn Monroe herself containing her most precious possessions, her private documents and evidence that could rewrite history. Dr. Vasquez pulled the cover off the first dress. The room erupted. Questions shouted from every direction. Camera flashes exploding like fireworks. Reporters pushing forward to get a closer look. "Is that the real dress from the 7-year itch? How was this authenticated? Where has it been for 60 years? Is this connected to conspiracy theories about Monroe's death?" Dr. Vasquez raised her hands for silence. "I've spent 30 years studying Marilyn Monroe. I've examined every documented piece of her wardrobe, every photograph, every piece of correspondence that has ever been made public." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Everything in this vault is genuine, and much of it has never been seen before." She pulled out one of Marilyn's letters and began to read. "They think I don't know what's going on. They think I'm just a dumb blonde who doesn't understand. But I see everything, I hear everything, and I'm writing it all down. If something happens to me, the truth is in my safe house, the house nobody knows about." Silence in the room. Complete, absolute silence. Then one reporter raised his hand. "Are you saying Marilyn Monroe was murdered?" Dr. Vasquez looked at Sarah. Sarah stepped forward. Her hands were shaking. Her baby was kicking. Every instinct told her to stay silent to let the experts handle this, but she'd spent her whole life staying silent. "I'm saying that Marilyn Monroe knew she was in danger," Sarah said, her voice stronger than she expected. "She built a vault to hide evidence. She left instructions for whoever found it. And for 62 years, someone has been trying to make sure that evidence never saw the light of day. Who's been hiding it? A family named Reed. Their grandfather Harrison Reed was a powerful Hollywood executive. He sealed the house after Marilyn died. His grandson, Jonathan Reed, has been threatening me since I purchased the property." Cameras swung toward her, microphones thrust in her direction. "What kind of threats?" "He offered me $5 million to sell everything and stay quiet. When I refused, he started targeting people I care about. He's been following me, surveilling my home, making it clear that he'll do whatever it takes to bury this discovery." "Do you fear for your safety?" Sarah's hand went to her belly. "I'm 8 months pregnant. My husband left me. I was facing eviction. I had nothing left to lose when I bought that house." She looked directly into the nearest camera. "But I found something worth fighting for. Marilyn Monroe deserved better than 60 years of silence. The truth deserves to be told, and I'm not going to let anyone stop me from telling it." The press conference lasted another 2 hours. Questions about authentication processes, about the contents of the vault, about Reed and his family's connection to Marilyn's death. By the time it was over, the story was everywhere. Breaking news alerts on every major network, trending on social media, headlines screaming about the greatest Hollywood discovery in history. Sarah checked her phone. Dozens of messages, interview requests from every outlet imaginable, and one text from Jonathan Reed. "You've made a very serious mistake. Enjoy your moment. It won't last." Sarah forwarded the message to Dr. Vasquez. "He's not going to stop," she said. "No, he's not. But now the whole world is watching. Whatever he does next, he does in the spotlight. Is that enough to protect me? Dr. Vasquez looked at her for a long moment. I don't know, but it's better than hiding in the dark. They left the university through a back entrance, avoiding the crowd of reporters still gathered at the front. Dr. Vasquez had arranged a safe house, an apartment belonging to a colleague who was overseas for the semester. Sarah called Mrs. Nguyen from the car. I'm at my sister's place, the old woman said. I saw you on television. The whole neighborhood is watching. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. Don't apologize. You're fighting for something important. I'm proud of you. I'm scared. Good. Fear keeps you sharp, but don't let it stop you. They hung up. Sarah stared out the window at the darkening sky. She'd done it. She'd gone public. The whole world knew about the vault now. But Reed was still out there, and she had the feeling the real battle was just beginning. The safe house was small, but secure. Dr. Vasquez had arranged for private security to watch the building overnight. Sarah lay on the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Her phone buzzed, a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Miss Mitchell, a woman's voice. Elderly, trembling slightly. Who is this? My name is Margaret Sullivan. I was Marilyn Monroe's personal secretary for the last 3 years of her life. Sarah sat up, her heart pounding. I saw you on the news tonight, Margaret continued. I've been waiting 62 years for someone to find that vault. You knew about it. I helped her build it. I helped her hide everything. The old woman's voice cracked. I was there the night she died, and I've kept the secret ever since because I was afraid. But I'm 91 years old now. I'm dying, and I can't take the truth to my grave. What truth? Silence on the other end. Then very quietly, Marilyn didn't kill herself, and I can prove it. Sarah's hand was shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. How? I have recordings. Recordings I made myself the night she died. Voices, conversations, everything that happened in that house. Where are you? I'm in a nursing home in Santa Monica. Can you come tomorrow morning? I'll be there first thing. Come alone. Don't tell anyone. If they find out I'm talking to you. I understand? Thank you, Miss Mitchell. Thank you for being braver than I ever was. The line went dead. Sarah sat in the darkness, her mind racing. A witness. Someone who was there the night Marilyn Monroe died. Someone with recordings that could prove murder. This was bigger than costumes and letters. This was justice 62 years overdue. She didn't sleep at all that night. At 6 in the morning, Sarah called Dr. Vasquez. I need to go somewhere, alone. I can't tell you where. That's dangerous. I know, but I have to do this. Sarah, there's a witness, someone who was there when Marilyn died. She has recordings, evidence that could prove everything. Silence on the other end. When will you be back? A few hours. If I'm not back by noon, something's gone wrong. Be careful. I will. Sarah took a taxi to Santa Monica. The nursing home was called Sunset Gardens, a bland name for a bland building full of people waiting to die. She found Margaret Sullivan in a private room on the 3rd floor. The woman was tiny, frail, hooked up to oxygen, but her eyes were sharp, alert, alive in a way her body no longer was. Miss Mitchell, Margaret said. You came. I told you I would. Sit down, please. This is going to take a while. Sarah sat in the chair beside the bed and waited. Margaret was quiet for a long moment, gathering her thoughts. Then she began to speak. I started working for Marilyn in 1959. I was young then, starstruck. I couldn't believe I was working for the most famous woman in the world. She smiled faintly. But the woman I met wasn't the woman I'd seen on screen. She was smart. So much smarter than anyone gave her credit for. She read constantly. Philosophy, psychology, history. She wanted to understand the world, not just be decorated by it. What was she like in those last years? Afraid. She was always afraid. She knew too much, you see. About the Kennedys, about the mob, about the studio system, and the men who ran it. She'd been everyone's confidant, everyone's lover, everyone's secret keeper. And secrets are dangerous things. Did she talk about being in danger? Constantly. She started recording conversations without telling people, meetings with executives, phone calls with politicians. She kept journals of everything she learned. Margaret's eyes grew distant. She told me once, Maggie, if anything happens to me, they'll say it was suicide. They'll say I was unstable, that I couldn't handle the pressure. Don't believe them. Look for the truth. I've hidden it somewhere safe. The vault. The vault. We built it together. I helped her move everything there. The costumes, the documents, the recordings. She wanted to make sure it all survived, even if she didn't. Sarah leaned forward. What happened the night she died? Margaret closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were full of tears. They came to her house around midnight. 3 men. I recognized one of them. Harrison Reed. Sarah's breath caught. They were arguing with her. I could hear them from the guest house where I was staying. Marilyn was screaming at them. She said she was going to tell the world everything. She said she had proof of what they'd done. What did they do? I don't know exactly. Something with the Kennedys, something political, something that could have destroyed careers, maybe started a war. Margaret shook her head. I never heard the details. I just heard her screaming. Then I heard her stop screaming. And then there was silence. They killed her. They made it look like an overdose. They were professionals. They knew how to stage a scene. Margaret reached under her pillow and pulled out a small device, an old cassette recorder. But they didn't know I was listening. They didn't know I had this. Sarah stared at the recorder. I've kept it hidden for 62 years. I was too afraid to come forward. Harrison Reed threatened my family, said he'd kill everyone I loved if I ever talked. So I stayed quiet. I let them get away with it. Why now? Because I'm dying. Because my family is gone. Because I saw you on television last night, 8 months pregnant, standing up to Jonathan Reed, and I thought if that young woman can be brave, maybe I can too. Margaret pressed the recorder into Sarah's hands. This is Marilyn's voice, and their voices. Everything that happened that night. Take it. Make sure the world hears it. Sarah held the recorder like it was made of glass. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Just finish what Marilyn started. Give her justice. Sarah stood to leave. Then she stopped. Mrs. Sullivan, why didn't Marilyn run? If she knew she was in danger, why didn't she just disappear? Margaret smiled sadly. Because she was tired of running. She'd spent her whole life being someone else, being what everyone wanted her to be. At the end, she just wanted to be real, to tell the truth and accept whatever came next. The old woman looked at Sarah's pregnant belly. I think you understand that, don't you? Sarah nodded slowly. Take care of that baby, Margaret said, and take care of yourself. The Reeds are not going to let this go. Neither am I. Sarah walked out of the nursing home into the bright California sunlight, the cassette recorder in her purse, the weight of 62 years of secrets in her hands. She was halfway to the street when she saw the black sedan, parked directly in front of the building, engine running. The young man in the dark suit leaned against the hood, watching her. Miss Mitchell, he called. Mr. Reed would like that recorder. Sarah's heart stopped. They'd followed her. They knew about Margaret. They knew everything. I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't insult my intelligence. He pushed off from the car and walked toward her. Hand it over and we'll pretend this never happened. Go to hell. That's not very cooperative. He reached into his jacket. Sarah didn't wait to see what he was reaching for. She ran. 8 months pregnant, carrying evidence that could expose a 62-year-old murder, Sarah Mitchell ran for her life. Sarah's lungs burned as she ran. Her pregnant belly made every step agony. Her back screamed. Her legs felt like they were filled with concrete. But she kept running. Behind her, she heard footsteps. The man in the dark suit pursuing her through the parking lot of the nursing home. Miss Mitchell, stop. You're only making this worse. Sarah didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The cassette recorder in her purse contained proof of murder. Proof that powerful people had killed Marilyn Monroe and gotten away with it for 62 years. She would die before she let them have it. She rounded the corner of the building and saw a delivery truck idling near the service entrance. The driver was inside, unloading boxes, his back turned. Sarah didn't think. She just acted. She yanked open the passenger door and threw herself inside. Hey, the driver shouted. What the hell are you doing? Please, Sarah gasped. Please, you have to drive. There's a man chasing me. He's going to hurt me. The driver looked at her pregnant belly, then at the man in the dark suit rounding the corner behind her. Drive? Sarah begged. Please, I'm 8 months pregnant. He's going to hurt my baby. Something shifted in the driver's face. He jumped into the cab and slammed his door. Hold on. The truck lurched forward. Sarah looked in the side mirror and saw the man in the suit stopping, pulling out his phone, watching them drive away. Thank you, Sarah breathed. Thank you so much. Lady, I don't know what kind of trouble you're in, but you need to call the police. The police can't help me, not with this. Then who can? Sarah thought about it. Dr. Vasquez, the journalist who had covered the press conference, the millions of people who had seen the story on the news. Everyone, she said, everyone needs to hear what I have. The driver dropped her at a gas station 2 miles from the nursing home. Sarah called Dr. Vasquez from a payphone, not trusting her cell to be secure. "Where are you?" Dr. Vasquez demanded. "I've been trying to reach you for hours." "I got what I went for, a recording, an eyewitness account of the night Marilyn died. But Reed's people found me. They're following me." "Where are you now?" Sarah gave her the address. "Stay there. I'm sending someone to pick you up. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone." "Helena, this recording changes everything. Margaret Sullivan was there. She heard Harrison Reed and his men murder Marilyn Monroe. She recorded the whole thing." Silence on the other end. Then, my God. "We need to release it. Today, now, before they find me and destroy it." "We will, but first we need to get you somewhere safe." "You're in no condition to—" A sharp pain ripped through Sarah's abdomen. She doubled over, gasping, the phone slipping from her hand. Sarah, what's happening?" Another pain? Worse than the first? Like a knife twisting inside her. Sarah looked down. Her dress was wet. Her water had broken. "No," she whispered. No, not now. Please, God, not now." She was 6 weeks early. The baby wasn't ready. She wasn't ready, but her body didn't care about timing. Sarah grabbed the phone. "Helena, my water broke. I'm going into labor." "What? You're only—" "I know. The stress must have triggered it. I need to get to a hospital." "I'm calling an ambulance. Stay on the line." Sarah slid down the wall of the gas station, her back against the concrete waves of pain washing over her. The cassette recorder was still in her purse. Evidence of murder. Evidence worth killing for. And she was about to have a baby in a gas station parking lot. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. The paramedics loaded Sarah onto a stretcher, asking questions she could barely answer through the contractions. "How far along are you?" 34 weeks. "Is this your first pregnancy?" "Yes." "Any complications?" "I've been under a lot of stress." The paramedic looked at her with something like sympathy. "Yeah, I can see that." They took her to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Sarah clutched her purse the entire way, refusing to let anyone take it from her. "Ma'am, we need to check your belongings." "No, this stays with me." "It's hospital policy." "I don't care about hospital policy. This bag does not leave my sight." Something in her voice must have convinced them. They let her keep the purse. In the delivery room, a doctor examined her and delivered the news Sarah had been dreading. "You're dilated to 6 centimeters. This baby is coming whether you're ready or not." "It's too early. She's not supposed to come for another 6 weeks." "Babies at 34 weeks usually do fine. They might need some time in the NICU, but the survival rate is excellent." Survival rate. The words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. "Is my baby going to die?" The doctor took her hand. "I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you both come through this healthy. But I need you to try to relax. Stress makes labor harder. Can you do that for me?" Sarah almost laughed. Relax. She was being hunted by people who had murdered Marilyn Monroe. She was carrying evidence that could destroy one of the most powerful families in America, and she was supposed to relax. "I'll try." The next 3 hours were a blur of pain and fear. Sarah gripped the bed rails through each contraction, her body doing something it had never done before, something she couldn't control. Between contractions, she checked her phone. Messages from Dr. Vasquez. From journalists. From numbers she didn't recognize. And one message that made her blood run cold. From Jonathan Reed. "We know which hospital you're at. We know which room. Enjoy meeting your daughter. It may be the only time you get with her." Sarah showed the message to the nearest nurse. "I need security. There are people trying to hurt me." The nurse looked at the message, then at Sarah, then called for help. Within minutes, 2 hospital security guards were posted outside her door. But Sarah knew it wouldn't be enough. Reed had resources, connections. He could get to her no matter how many guards they posted. She needed to release the recording now, before it was too late. "I need my phone," she told the nurse, "and I need to make a video call." "Ma'am, you're in active labor. I know what I'm in, but if I don't do this now, I might not get another chance." The nurse looked at the security guards, then back at Sarah. 5 minutes. That's all I can give you." Sarah called Dr. Vasquez on video. When the historian's face appeared on the screen, Sarah could see she'd been crying. "Sarah, thank God. Are you okay?" "I'm in labor. The baby's coming early, but Helena, I need you to do something for me." "Anything." The cassette recording, Margaret Sullivan's evidence. I need you to release it, now, today, before Reed can stop us. Sarah, we haven't even verified. There's no time for verification. Reed knows where I am. He's threatening my baby. If something happens to me, if he gets to me before I can talk, the truth dies with me. What do you want me to do? Sarah pulled the cassette recorder from her purse and held it up to the camera. I'm going to play this recording, right now, live. You're going to broadcast it to every journalist, every news outlet, everyone who will listen. And I'm going to tell the world exactly what the Reed family did to Marilyn Monroe. Dr. Vasquez's face went pale. Sarah, you're in labor. You can't... Watch me. And Sarah ended the call with Dr. Vasquez and opened Instagram Live, then Twitter, then Facebook, every platform she could access. Within seconds, thousands of people were watching. My name is Sarah Mitchell, she said, her voice strained but clear. 2 days ago, I held a press conference about a discovery I made, a secret vault belonging to Marilyn Monroe hidden for 62 years containing evidence of what really happened to her. Another contraction hit. Sarah gripped the bed rail and breathed through it, the phone still held up, still broadcasting. Since then, I've been threatened, followed, and terrorized by a man named Jonathan Reed. His grandfather, Harrison Reed, was responsible for Marilyn Monroe's death, and I have proof. She held up the cassette recorder. This recording was made by Margaret Sullivan, Marilyn's personal secretary, on the night of August 4th, 1962, the night Marilyn died. Margaret was there. She heard everything, and she recorded it. Sarah's hands were shaking. Sweat dripped down her face. The contractions were coming faster now, but she pressed play. Static at first, then voices, muffled but audible. A woman's voice high and desperate. You can't do this. I'll tell everyone. I'll tell the whole world what you've done. A man's voice cold and controlled. You won't tell anyone anything, Marilyn. You've become a liability. We can't afford liabilities. I have evidence. I have recordings. If anything happens to me. Nothing is going to happen to you. You're going to have an accident, a tragic overdose. The whole country will mourn, and then they'll forget. They always forget. Harrison, please. Goodbye, Marilyn. Sounds of a struggle, a cry of pain, then silence. Sarah stopped the recording. Tears were streaming down her face. That was Harrison Reed, Jonathan Reed's grandfather, confessing to murder. She looked directly into the camera. I'm in labor right now. My daughter is about to be born. I don't know if I'm going to survive the next few hours, but I needed the world to hear this. I needed everyone to know what happened to Marilyn Monroe. She didn't kill herself. She was murdered, and the people who killed her have been hiding the truth for 62 years. The door to her hospital room burst open. Jonathan Reed stood in the doorway flanked by 2 men. The security guards were nowhere to be seen. Turn off the camera, Reed said quietly. Sarah didn't move. I said turn it off. No, Reed walked toward her, his face a mask of controlled fury. You have no idea what you've done. That recording could destroy innocent people. Families who had nothing to do with your grandfather murdered Marilyn Monroe. I just played the confession for the entire world. It's doctored, fabricated. No one will believe. 2 million people are watching this live right now. By tomorrow, it'll be 200 million. The truth is out, Mr. Reed. You can't bury it anymore. Reed lunged for the phone. Sarah screamed. And then chaos erupted. Hospital security burst through the door, followed by 2 police officers. Someone was shouting. Reed was being restrained. Sarah was having another contraction, the worst one yet, her body trying to push her baby into the world while the room exploded around her. Get him out of here, someone yelled. Ma'am, we need you to put the phone down. The baby's crowning everyone out except medical staff. Sarah lost track of what was happening. The pain consumed her. She heard herself screaming, felt hands on her legs, heard a doctor's voice saying, push, Sarah, push. And then, through the haze of agony, she heard something else. A baby's cry. Thin, fragile, but alive. It's a girl, the doctor said. You have a beautiful baby girl. Sarah's arms were shaking as they placed her daughter on her chest. So small, so fragile, but perfect. Absolutely perfect. Hi, baby, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. Hi, Hope, I'm your mama. The baby's eyes were closed, but her tiny fingers wrapped around Sarah's pinky. We need to take her to the NICU, a nurse said gently. Just for observation, she's breathing well, but we want to make sure. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. She kissed her daughter's forehead and let them take her away. Only then did she realize her phone was still streaming. She picked it up and looked at the screen. 37 million views. And climbing. The comments were scrolling too fast to read, but she caught fragments. Oh my God, this is insane. She just gave birth while exposing a murder? Arrest Jonathan Reed. Sarah looked at the camera. Her name is Hope, she said quietly. I named her Hope because that's what she represents. Hope that the truth can survive. Hope that justice can prevail even 62 years later. She ended the stream, and then she closed her eyes and let herself finally rest. Sarah woke to find Dr. Vasquez sitting beside her bed. How long was I asleep? 6 hours. You needed it. My baby, is she? She's perfect. The NICU says she's doing better than expected. Strong lungs, good reflexes. She'll probably be ready to leave in a week or two. Sarah's eyes filled with tears of relief. And Reed? Arrested. The police took him into custody right here in the hospital. There are charges pending. Stalking harassment, criminal threats, breaking and entering. And that's just the beginning. What about the recording, the murder confession? Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. Sarah, do you have any idea what you've done? That live stream has been viewed over 100 million times. Every news outlet in the world is covering this story. The FBI has opened an investigation into Harrison Reed's activities and the circumstances of Marilyn Monroe's death. They're actually investigating. They have no choice. The public pressure is overwhelming, and the recording has been authenticated. Voice analysis confirms it's Harrison Reed speaking. The tape is genuine. Sarah lay back against her pillows, overwhelmed. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. 2 weeks ago, she'd been facing eviction with $800 to her name. Now she'd exposed a 62-year-old murder and given birth on live television in front of 40 million people. What happens now? She asked. Now you rest. Now you heal. Now you spend time with your daughter. Dr. Vasquez smiled. And when you're ready, we figure out what to do with a $255 million discovery. Is that what it's worth? Conservative estimate. The costumes alone will fetch tens of millions at auction, but the historical value, the documents, the recordings from the vault, those are priceless, and it all belongs to you. Sarah thought about the money, about what it could mean for Hope's future. But more than that, she thought about Marilyn, about a woman who had been silenced, exploited, murdered. A woman who had tried to protect herself by hiding the truth, trusting that someday someone would find it. I don't want to sell it, Sarah said. Dr. Vasquez looked surprised. What? I don't want to auction off Marilyn's belongings to the highest bidder. I don't want her life scattered into private collections where no one will ever see it. Then what do you want? Sarah thought about it. About what Marilyn would have wanted. About what Hope deserved. A museum, she said slowly. A place where people can learn who Marilyn really was. Not the sex symbol, not the tragedy, the real woman, the one who read Dostoevsky and fought for equal pay and knew that powerful men were getting away with terrible things. That would require significant funding, staff, a physical location. I have a physical location, the Malibu house. Marilyn's secret house. Dr. Vasquez stared at her. You want to turn the house into a museum. I want to turn it into a memorial, a place where Marilyn's truth lives forever, where no one can ever bury it again. That's actually brilliant. We can fund it with some of the collection, sell the pieces that are duplicated elsewhere, keep the unique items on display, use the proceeds to establish a foundation, scholarships for women in film, mental health resources for people in the entertainment industry, everything Marilyn cared about. Dr. Vasquez was nodding slowly, her eyes bright. The Marilyn Monroe Truth Foundation. I love it. Will you help me? Sarah, after what you've accomplished, I would follow you into battle. They spent the next hour sketching out plans. Dr. Vasquez made phone calls. Sarah fed Hope for the first time, her tiny daughter latching on with surprising strength. Everything felt possible. Everything felt new. Then Sarah's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Miss Mitchell. A woman's voice. Elderly but sharp. Yes? My name is Elizabeth Reed. Jonathan Reed is my son. Sarah's blood went cold. Before you hang up, please hear me out. I'm not calling to threaten you. I'm calling to thank you. Thank me. My father-in-law, Harrison Reed, was a monster. He controlled my husband. He controlled my son. He built an empire on lies and violence, and he forced everyone in this family to protect his secrets. Mrs. Reed. I've known the truth about Marilyn Monroe for 40 years. My husband confessed it to me on his deathbed. He begged me to expose what his father had done. But I was too afraid, too weak. I let the lie continue. Sarah listened, her heart pounding. What you did broadcasting that recording, forcing the world to face the truth, you freed my family from 62 years of poisonous secrets. My son is facing justice, yes, but he's also facing himself. For the first time in his life, he has to reckon with what he's become. I'm not sure that's a comfort. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be honest. Elizabeth Reed paused. I have something that belongs to you, something my husband kept hidden, something even Jonathan doesn't know about. What? A letter written by Marilyn Monroe, addressed to her daughter. Sarah's breath stopped. Marilyn had a daughter. She was born in 1946 before Marilyn was famous. The studio forced her to give the baby up for adoption. It was the greatest tragedy of her life. She never stopped looking for that child. She wrote letters she could never send, hoping that someday, somehow, her daughter would read them. Is the daughter still alive? She's 78 years old. She lives in Oregon. She has no idea who her mother really was. Sarah's mind was reeling. Why are you telling me this, Trompicomito? Because you've proven that the truth matters. Because you've shown that secrets can be brought into the light without destroying everything. Elizabeth's voice cracked. And because Marilyn deserved to have her daughter know she was loved, even if it's 62 years too late. Will you send me the letter? I'll do better than that. I'll bring it to you myself, along with everything else my husband kept hidden. Why would you do that? Because I'm 84 years old, Miss Mitchell. I've spent most of my life complicit in evil. I'd like to die having done one good thing. They arranged to meet the following week after Sarah and Hope were discharged from the hospital. Sarah hung up the phone and sat in silence, trying to process what she'd just learned. Marilyn Monroe had a daughter, a woman who'd lived her entire life not knowing who her mother was. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. 3 days later, Sarah was discharged from the hospital with Hope in her arms. The media circus outside was overwhelming. Hundreds of reporters, photographers, fans, and curiosity seekers crowded the entrance. Security had to form a human corridor just to get Sarah to the waiting car. Questions were shouted from every direction. Sarah, how does it feel to be a hero? What are you going to do with the Monroe collection? Is it true you're worth over $200 million? Are you afraid of retaliation from the Reed family? Sarah didn't answer. She just held her daughter close and walked forward one step at a time. Dr. Vasquez was waiting in the car. How are you holding up? I'm exhausted, overwhelmed, terrified. Sarah looked down at Hope sleeping peacefully in her car seat. And happier than I've ever been. Where do you want to go? Sarah thought about it. She couldn't go back to her old apartment. It wasn't safe, and it wasn't home anymore. The safe house was temporary. The Malibu mansion was a crime scene still being processed by investigators. Mrs. Nguyen, she said. I want to see Mrs. Nguyen. They drove to Pasadena to the small house where Mrs. Nguyen had been staying with her sister. When the old woman saw Sarah at the door, she burst into tears. Sarah, oh Sarah, I saw everything on the television. The birth, the recording that terrible man in your hospital room. I'm okay, Mrs. Nguyen. I'm okay now. And the baby, is she healthy? Sarah held Hope up so Mrs. Nguyen could see her face. Her name is Hope. Mrs. Nguyen's weathered hand touched the baby's cheek with infinite gentleness. She's beautiful. She has your eyes. She has her father's chin, but I'm hoping she won't inherit his character. They went inside. Mrs. Nguyen made tea. Her sister, a woman named Lynn, fussed over Hope while Sarah collapsed onto the sofa. You look tired, Mrs. Nguyen said. You need to rest? I will. I just needed to see you first. To thank you. Thank me for what? For believing in me? For giving me that $800 when you had no reason to think I'd ever pay it back? For warning me when Reed's people came asking questions? For being the only person in my life who treated me like I mattered? Mrs. Nguyen's eyes filled with tears. You always mattered, Sarah. You just forgot for a while. They sat together in comfortable silence, drinking tea, watching Hope sleep. Then Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from Elizabeth Reed. I'm in Los Angeles. I have the letter. Where should I meet you? Sarah replied with Mrs. Nguyen's address. Someone's coming, she said. Someone with more information about Marilyn, about a daughter she had to give up. Marilyn Monroe had a daughter. It's a long story. I have time. Sarah told her everything. The adoption, the letters, Elizabeth Reed's confession about her family's secrets. Mrs. Nguyen listened without interrupting. When Sarah finished, the old woman was quiet for a long moment. This daughter, she finally said. Does she know, Not yet. I have to find the right way to tell her. And you will be the one to tell her. I think I have to be. I'm the one who found the truth. I'm the one Marilyn trusted without even knowing it. That's a heavy responsibility. Everything about this has been heavy, but I can't stop now, not when there's still someone out there who deserves to know they were loved. Elizabeth Reed arrived an hour later. She was smaller than Sarah expected, fragile-looking with white hair and trembling hands, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "Miss Mitchell," she said, extending her hand, "I can't tell you how sorry I am for everything my family has done. You didn't do it." "No, but I let it happen. I stayed silent. That's its own kind of guilt." They sat in Mrs. Nguyen's small living room, an unlikely gathering of women brought together by secrets and truth. Elizabeth opened her handbag and pulled out a worn envelope. "This letter was found in Marilyn's possession after she died. My father-in-law kept it. I don't know why. Perhaps as leverage, perhaps as a trophy. He was cruel enough for either." Sarah took the envelope with trembling hands. The paper was yellowed with age, but the handwriting was clear. Marilyn's handwriting. "To my darling daughter," it began. "I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if I'll ever have the courage to send it. But I need to write it anyway. I need you to know that not a day has passed when I haven't thought about you. They told me I had to give you up. They said I was too young, too poor, too nobody to be anyone's mother. They said you'd have a better life without me. Maybe they were right. Maybe you did. But I never stopped loving you. I never stopped wondering who you became. I never stopped hoping that someday, somehow you'd find your way back to me. I'm famous now. The whole world knows my name. But none of it means anything without you. All the movies, all the money, all the adoring fans, I'd trade it all for 1 hour with you. One conversation, one chance to explain. I wanted you. Please believe that. I wanted you more than anything I've ever wanted in my life. Giving you up wasn't a choice. It was a wound that never healed. If you're reading this, if somehow this letter found its way to you, please know that you are loved. You are loved. By a mother who never forgot your face, even though she only held you once. I hope your life has been beautiful. I hope you've been happy. I hope you've known love in all its forms. And I hope you can forgive me for not being brave enough to fight for you when it mattered. With all my love forever, Norma Jean." Sarah was crying by the time she finished reading. "Where is she?" she asked. "The daughter, where is she now?" Elizabeth handed her a slip of paper. "Her name is Carol Anderson. She's a retired school teacher. She lives in a small town called Ashland, Oregon." "Does she know about Marilyn?" "She knows she was adopted. She spent her whole life wondering about her birth mother, but she has no idea who it actually was." Sarah looked at the letter in her hands, the final piece of Marilyn Monroe's hidden truth. "I need to tell her," she said. "I need to bring her this letter and tell her who her mother was." "Are you sure?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "She's 78 years old. This news could be overwhelming." "She deserves to know. She's waited her whole life." "Then let me come with you," Elizabeth Reed said. "Let me help deliver the news. It's the least I can do after everything my family has taken from her." Sarah considered it. A Reed and a Mitchell together, carrying truth to a woman who'd been denied it for 7 decades. There was a kind of poetry in that. "Okay," she said, "we'll go together." Mrs. Nguyen touched Sarah's arm. "And the baby? You can't take a newborn on a trip to Oregon." "I'll stay here," Mrs. Nguyen's sister Lynn said. "I raised 4 children. 1 more for a few days won't hurt me." Sarah looked at Hope sleeping peacefully in her carrier. "I don't want to leave her." "You're not leaving her. You're finishing what you started, so she can grow up in a world where the truth matters." Mrs. Nguyen smiled. "Go, tell Marilyn's daughter who she is. Give her the gift you've given everyone else." "What gift?" "The truth." 2 days later, Sarah and Elizabeth Reed boarded a plane to Oregon. Sarah had never been on a plane before. Her old life hadn't included travel, but her new life, it seemed, included everything. They flew into Medford and rented a car for the drive to Ashland. It was a small town, beautiful and quiet, the kind of place where people went to disappear or to heal. Carol Anderson's house was a modest bungalow on a tree-lined street. Flowers bloomed in window boxes. A cat slept on the porch. Sarah sat in the parked car, unable to move. "What if she doesn't believe me?" she asked. "What if she doesn't want to know? Then we respect her wishes and leave. But at least she'll have the choice. That's more than anyone ever gave her before." Sarah took a deep breath, clutched the letter in her hand, and walked up the path to the front door. She knocked. A moment later, the door opened. Carol Anderson was a small woman with white hair and kind eyes. She looked nothing like Marilyn Monroe and everything like her all at once. "Yes, can I help you?" "Mrs. Anderson, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I need to talk to you about your mother." Carol's face went pale. "My mother died 40 years ago." "Your adoptive mother, yes, but I'm here about your birth mother." Sarah held up the letter. "I'm here about Marilyn Monroe." Carol Anderson stared at her for a long moment. Then she began to cry. "I always knew," she whispered. "Somehow I always knew." Tiffany. Carol Anderson stepped back from the doorway, her hands trembling, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Come in," she whispered. "Please come in." Sarah and Elizabeth followed her into the small living room. Family photographs covered every surface. Children, grandchildren, a life built on love and ordinary moments. Carol sat down heavily in an armchair, staring at the letter in Sarah's hands like it was a ghost made of paper. "I've dreamed about this my whole life," she said. "Imagined it 1,000 different ways, but I never thought—" She shook her head. "Marilyn Monroe. How is that possible?" "She gave birth to you in 1946, Sarah said gently. "Before she was famous, the studio made her give you up. They said she was too young, too poor, too unimportant to keep you. But she wanted me. She wanted you more than anything. She never stopped thinking about you, never stopped hoping you'd find your way back to her." Sarah held out the letter. Carol's hands shook as she took it. She unfolded the yellowed paper carefully, reverently, as if it might crumble to dust at any moment. She read in silence. Her lips moved slightly, forming words she'd waited 78 years to hear. When she finished, she pressed the letter against her heart and wept. "My whole life," she said between sobs. "I wondered why she gave me up. I wondered if she ever loved me at all. I thought maybe I was just a mistake, something to be discarded and forgotten." "You were never forgotten," Sarah said. "She wrote about you constantly, in her journals, her letters, even in notes to herself. You were the missing piece of her life." "I have so many questions." "I know, and I have answers. Not all of them, but many. I found her vault, Carol, her secret place where she hid everything that mattered to her, everything the world never got to see." Carol looked up, her eyes red but bright with desperate curiosity. "Can I see it? Can I see where she kept her secrets?" "You can see everything. The vault, the letters, the photographs, all of it. Whenever you're ready." Carol laughed through her tears. "I've been ready for 78 years. I just didn't know it until now." Elizabeth Reed, who had been silent throughout the exchange, stepped forward. "Mrs. Anderson, my name is Elizabeth Reed. My family is responsible for many of the injustices committed against your mother. My father-in-law helped cover up her murder. My son tried to bury the evidence forever." Carol's expression shifted. Wariness crept into her eyes. "Why are you here?" "Because I'm tired of carrying the weight of what my family has done. Because I thought you deserved to hear the truth from someone who was complicit in hiding it." Elizabeth's voice cracked. "And because I wanted to apologize. On behalf of my family. For taking your mother from you. For stealing 62 years of truth." Carol studied her for a long moment. "Your apology doesn't bring her back." "I know. It doesn't give me the childhood I should have had, the mother who should have raised me." "I know that too. But you came anyway." "Yes." Carol was quiet. Then slowly she extended her hand. "Thank you for having the courage to face me. That's more than most people would do." Elizabeth took her hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Your mother would have been proud of you," she whispered. "She would have been so proud of the woman you became." They stayed in Ashland for 3 days. Sarah told Carol everything, about the auction, about the vault, about Margaret Sullivan's recording and the live broadcast during Hope's birth, about Jonathan Reed's arrest and the FBI investigation into Harrison Reed's crimes. Carol listened to all of it with the focused attention of someone finally receiving answers to questions she'd carried for a lifetime. "I want to meet your daughter," Carol said on the second day. What would she be? My great-niece. No, that's not right." Sarah smiled. "I think she's whatever we decide she is. Family doesn't always follow traditional lines." "No, it doesn't." Carol looked at a photograph of her own children, now grown with families of their own. "I have 3 kids, 7 grandchildren, 11 great-grandchildren. None of them know who their great-great-grandmother really was." "Do you want to tell them?" "I want to shout it from the rooftops." Carol laughed. "But I also want to protect them from the circus that's going to follow, the media attention, the questions, the people who want something from them because of who I am. That's a decision only you can make." "I know." Carol reached out and took Sarah's hand. "But I'm glad I won't have to make it alone. I'm glad I found you. Or you found me. However this works." I think Marilyn found both of us, in her own way.
Sweet.
On the third day, Carol made her decision. "I'm coming with you," she announced. "To Los Angeles. To the vault. I want to see where my mother kept her secrets. I want to touch the things she touched. I want to be close to her even if it's 62 years too late." "Are you sure it's going to be overwhelming?" "My whole life has been overwhelming. Finding out who I really am, losing my adoptive parents, raising 3 children on a teacher's salary, watching my husband die of cancer." Carol's jaw set with determination. "I've survived everything life has thrown at me. I can survive this too." They flew back to Los Angeles together. Carol sat by the window watching the clouds pass beneath them, lost in thoughts Sarah couldn't imagine. "She flew in planes like this," Carol said quietly, "to movie premieres, to photo shoots, to meetings with presidents, and the whole time she was thinking about me." "The whole time," Sarah confirmed. "You were always with her." When they landed, the media circus had grown even larger. Somehow word had leaked that Sarah was returning with Marilyn Monroe's long-lost daughter. Reporters crowded the airport exit, shouting questions, thrusting microphones toward them. "Carol, how do you feel about discovering your true identity? Sarah, what's next for the Monroe collection? Is it true the FBI has opened a murder investigation?" Security helped them push through to a waiting car. Dr. Vasquez was inside, along with Thomas Chen and a lawyer Sarah didn't recognize. "This is David Winters," Dr. Vasquez said. "He specializes in high-profile estate cases. He's going to help us navigate what comes next." "What does come next?" Sarah asked. "Legally a complicated mess. The Monroe estate will challenge Carol's claim to inheritance. The Reed family's assets are being frozen pending the criminal investigation, and you, Sarah, are sitting on a discovery worth at least $255 million. I don't care about the money." "You should, because the money is how you protect everything else. The museum, the foundation, Carol's legacy, your daughter's future. Money isn't evil, it's a tool, and right now you have more tools than you've ever had in your life." Sarah looked at Carol, who was staring out the window at the city that had created and destroyed her mother. "What do you want?" Sarah asked her. From all of this, Carol thought about it for a long moment. "I want people to know who she really was, not the sex symbol, not the tragedy, the woman, the mother, the person who loved me even when she couldn't keep me." She turned to face Sarah. "I want her to be remembered the way she deserved to be remembered. Is that something we can do?" "That's exactly what we're going to do." 3 months later, the Marilyn Monroe Truth Museum opened its doors. The Malibu mansion had been restored to its original glory. Not the decay Sarah had found, but the beauty Marilyn had created. The walls were repainted. The gardens were replanted. The vault was preserved exactly as it had been discovered, a time capsule visitors could descend into and experience for themselves. The opening gala was unlike anything Sarah had ever imagined. 500 guests, Hollywood royalty historians, journalists, politicians. Dr. Vasquez gave a speech about the historical significance of the discovery. Thomas Chen presented his authentication findings. A documentary crew filmed everything for the feature they were making about Sarah's journey. And Carol Anderson, 78 years old, stood before the crowd and spoke about her mother for the first time. "I never knew Marilyn Monroe," she said, her voice wavering but determined. "I never got to call her mom. I never got to sit with her, talk with her, learn who she really was." She paused, composing herself. "But thanks to Sarah Mitchell, I know her now. I've read her journals, I've held her jewelry, I've worn her clothes, I've listened to her voice on recordings no one knew existed, and I've come to understand something important." The room was absolutely silent. "My mother wasn't just an icon. She wasn't just a tragedy. She was a woman who loved deeply, thought deeply, and fought harder than anyone knew against forces that wanted to use her and discard her. She was brave, she was brilliant, and she was taken from the world too soon by people who thought they could silence her forever." Carol looked directly into the documentary camera. "They were wrong. The truth can be buried, but it can't be killed. It waits in the darkness until someone brave enough comes along to dig it up. Sarah Mitchell was that person, and because of her courage, my mother finally gets to tell her own story." The applause was deafening. Sarah stood in the back of the room, Hope sleeping in her arms, tears streaming down her face. She thought about the woman she'd been 4 months ago, facing eviction, abandoned by her husband, $800 to her name. She'd gambled everything on an impossible chance, and she'd won. But more than winning money or fame, she'd won something that couldn't be measured. Purpose. Meaning. A legacy she could pass on to her daughter. After the gala, Sarah walked through the mansion alone. The guests had gone. The caterers were cleaning up. The security team was doing their final sweeps before closing for the night. She climbed the stairs to the master bedroom and stood at the threshold, remembering the first time she'd entered this room. The dust, the darkness, the feeling that she was intruding on something sacred. Now the room was restored, illuminated, filled with carefully preserved artifacts. Marilyn's vanity stood under museum lights. Her jewelry was displayed in climate-controlled cases. The hidden door to the vault was visible now, a feature rather than a secret. Sarah walked to the vanity and looked at herself in the same mirror Marilyn had looked into 62 years ago. "I hope I did right by you," she whispered. "I hope this is what you wanted." She didn't expect an answer. She didn't get one. But she felt something. A warmth. A presence. A sense that somewhere, somehow, Marilyn Monroe was at peace. Sarah descended to the vault one final time. The costumes hung in their cases. The documents were preserved under glass. The film canisters had been digitized and were being prepared for public release. Everything Marilyn had hidden, everything she'd protected, everything she'd trusted would someday be found. "Thank you," Sarah whispered to the empty room. "Thank you for trusting me." Then she climbed back up the stairs, closed the vault door, and walked out into the California night. The next morning, Sarah received 2 pieces of news. The first was expected. Jonathan Reed had been formally charged with conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. His trial was scheduled to begin in 6 months. Legal experts predicted he would spend at least a decade in prison. The second was unexpected. A woman named Rebecca Torres called Sarah's new office at the museum. "Miss Mitchell, I'm a genealogist. I've been researching Marilyn Monroe's family tree for a documentary project, and I've found something you need to see." What kind of something? Marilyn had a half-sister, born to her mother in 1919, given up for adoption just like Carol was. That sister had children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Sarah's breath caught. "Are you saying there are more relatives?" "I'm saying Marilyn Monroe has living family members who have no idea they're connected to her. At least a dozen that I've found so far. Possibly more." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you've proven that the truth matters. Because these people deserve to know who they are just like Carol did, and because I think you're the right person to tell them." Sarah thought about Carol, about the moment she'd handed her Marilyn's letter, about the way the old woman's face had transformed from grief to joy. "Send me everything you have," Sarah said. "Names, locations, contact information, all of it." "You're going to reach out to them. Someone has to. Why you?" Sarah looked at Hope sleeping in a bassinet beside her desk. "Because Marilyn trusted whoever found her vault to do the right thing. And the right thing doesn't stop with one discovery. It keeps going. It keeps growing. Until everyone who deserves the truth has it." Over the next year, Sarah traveled across America. She found Marilyn's relatives in Oregon, Texas, Florida, New York. Some welcomed the news with joy. Others were skeptical. A few wanted nothing to do with the connection. But most of them cried when Sarah handed them evidence of who they really were. Letters, photographs, DNA tests that confirmed what the documents suggested. The family grew. Carol became the matriarch of a clan she'd never known existed. Cousins she'd never met. Great-nieces and nephews who shared her blood. They gathered at the museum for holidays. They shared stories about their lives. They created the family Marilyn had always wanted but never got to have. And through it all, Sarah watched Hope grow. Her daughter took her first steps in the museum's garden, spoke her first words in the room where Marilyn's dresses hung, grew from infant to toddler to little girl surrounded by history and truth. On Hope's 3rd birthday, Sarah took her to the vault. The little girl looked around with wide eyes, not understanding the significance of what she was seeing, but sensing something important. "Mama who lived here. A woman named Marilyn. She was very special." "Was she a princess?" Sarah smiled. "No, baby. She was something better. She was brave." "Like you?" Sarah knelt down to look her daughter in the eye. "I hope so. I try to be." "I want to be brave too." "You already are. You're the bravest girl I know." Hope giggled and ran to explore the room, her small feet pattering on the stone floor, where secrets had slept for 60 years. Sarah watched her and felt something shift inside her chest. This was why she'd fought, why she'd risked everything, why she'd refused to let powerful men bury the truth. Not for money, not for fame, not even for Marilyn. For hope. For the world hope would grow up in. For the idea that truth could survive. That courage could matter, that one person could make a difference. The FBI investigation concluded 2 years after Sarah's discovery. Harrison Reed was posthumously charged with conspiracy to commit murder. The evidence from Margaret Sullivan's recording, combined with documents found in the vault and testimony from surviving witnesses, painted a clear picture of what had happened on August 4, 1962. Marilyn Monroe had been killed because she knew too much. About political affairs. About organized crime connections. About the dark machinery that ran Hollywood. She tried to protect herself by gathering evidence, by hiding it in a place no one knew about, by trusting that someday someone would find it, and someone had. Jonathan Reed's trial was the media event of the decade. Sarah testified for 3 days. She recounted finding the vault, discovering the evidence, being threatened, going into labor while broadcasting Marilyn's truth to the world. When she finished, the prosecutor asked one final question. "Miss Mitchell, why did you do it? Why did you risk everything, including your life and your baby's life, to expose secrets that had been buried for 60 years? Sarah thought about the question, about all the ways she could answer it. Then she looked at the jury and spoke from her heart. Because Marilyn Monroe deserved better than silence. Because the truth matters even when it's dangerous. Because my daughter deserves to grow up in a world where powerful people can't just make inconvenient women disappear." She paused. "And because sometimes the only thing standing between injustice and justice is one person willing to say no." Jonathan Reed was convicted on all charges. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His family's fortune was largely seized, with significant portions allocated to a victim's compensation fund. Elizabeth Reed testified against her own son, an act of courage that cost her everything except her conscience. "I should have done this years ago," she told Sarah after the verdict. "I should have spoken up when my husband was alive, when I first learned what his father had done. I was a coward." "You're not a coward now." "No, thanks to you, I'm not." The museum became an institution. Over 3 million visitors in its first 5 years. Scholars from around the world came to study the documents. Filmmakers made documentaries. Authors wrote books. Sarah established the Marilyn Monroe Truth Foundation with the proceeds. They funded scholarships for women in film, mental health resources for entertainment industry workers, educational programs about media manipulation and the importance of protecting vulnerable people from exploitation. Carol served on the board until her death at 83. She passed peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by the family she'd discovered so late in life. Her last words, according to her daughter, were, "Tell Mama I'm coming." Sarah spoke at her funeral. Carol Anderson spent 78 years not knowing who she was. Then she spent 5 years embracing it with everything she had. She wasn't just Marilyn Monroe's daughter. She was her own person, her own story, her own truth. Sarah's voice cracked. "She taught me that it's never too late to discover who you really are. That family is more than blood. That love can survive anything, even 60 years of separation." She looked at the photograph of Carol displayed beside the casket. "Rest well, Carol. Your mother is waiting for you, and now you finally get to call her Mom." 10 years after buying the house at auction, Sarah stood on the museum terrace at sunset. Hope was 10 now, bright, curious, fearless. She was already talking about becoming a documentary filmmaker, about telling stories that mattered, about carrying on her mother's work. Dr. Vasquez had retired but still visited regularly. Thomas Chen had become the museum's chief curator. Mrs. Nguyen had passed away 2 years ago, but her photograph hung in Sarah's office, a reminder of the kindness that had made everything possible. Marcus, Sarah's ex-husband, had tried to contact her once 3 years after her discovery. He'd seen the news. He'd realized what he'd abandoned. She'd never responded. Some doors once closed should stay closed. Elizabeth Reed had become an unlikely friend. She visited the museum every month, wandering through the exhibits, making peace with her family's crimes, one artifact at a time. "Do you ever regret it?" Elizabeth asked one evening, standing beside Sarah on the terrace. All the chaos, the threats, the danger, the years of legal battles. Sarah watched the sun sink toward the Pacific. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that Marilyn had to die for the truth to matter. I regret that Carol only got 5 years with her mother's memory instead of a lifetime with her mother." She shook her head. "But do I regret doing it? No. Not for 1 second. What would you tell someone else in your position, someone who found something dangerous, something powerful people wanted to stay buried? Sarah thought about it. I'd tell them to be afraid, because fear is rational when you're facing powerful enemies. But I'd also tell them that fear isn't a reason to stop. It's a reason to be careful while you keep going. And if they asked why risk everything for the truth? Sarah looked at her daughter, who was playing in the garden below, chasing butterflies through the flowers Marilyn Monroe had planted 60 years ago. Because the truth is the only thing that lasts. Money fades, fame fades, even families fade. But the truth, once it's out there, can never be taken back. It changes the world forever, and that change is worth everything, every risk, every sacrifice, every moment of fear. You really believe that? I have to believe it. Otherwise, what was any of this for? That night, Sarah tucked Hope into bed in their home, a modest house a few miles from the museum. Nothing extravagant, nothing that would have seemed impossible to the woman who'd once faced eviction with $800 to her name. "Mama," Hope said as Sarah pulled up the covers, "tell me the story again." "Which story, baby?" "The Marilyn story, how you found her secrets." Sarah smiled. She'd told this story 100 times, 1,000 times, and she'd tell it 1,000 more. Once upon a time, there was a woman who had lost everything. Her husband, her home, her hope. She had nothing left except a baby growing inside her and a crazy dream. That's you. That's me. And one day this woman found a house. An old house that nobody wanted. An old house with secrets hidden inside. Marilyn's house. Marilyn's house. And when she opened the door, when she walked inside, she found more than she ever expected. She found dresses and jewelry and letters and recordings. But more than that, she found truth. Truth that had been waiting in the darkness for 62 years. And she told everyone. She told everyone, even when bad men tried to stop her, even when she was scared, even when she was having a baby right in the middle of it all. Hope giggled. That's the crazy part. That is the crazy part. But she did it anyway, because some things are more important than fear. Some truths are worth fighting for no matter the cost. And that's why there's a museum now. That's why there's a museum now. So everyone can know the truth. So Marilyn can finally tell her own story. So no one can ever bury her again. Hope was quiet for a moment. "Mama, am I going to tell important stories too?" "If you want to, you can be anything you want to be, Hope. That's the whole point." "I want to be brave, like you, like Marilyn." Sarah leaned down and kissed her daughter's forehead. "You already are, baby. You already are." She turned off the light and walked to the door. "Mama." "Yes, Hope?" "Thank you for telling me the story." Sarah smiled in the darkness. "Thank you for being the reason I had to tell it." She closed the door and stood in the hallway, listening to her daughter's breathing slow into sleep. Outside the window, the California sky was full of stars. Sarah thought about the woman she'd been. Pregnant, alone, desperate, gambling everything on a house she'd never seen inside. She thought about the woman she was now. A mother, a truth teller, a builder of legacies. She thought about Marilyn Monroe, who had hidden her secrets in the darkness and trusted that someday someone would be brave enough to bring them into the light. And she thought about Hope, her daughter, her future. The reason all of it mattered. Sarah walked to the living room and sat by the window, looking out at the night. She was 32 years old. She'd been through hell and come out the other side. She'd exposed a 60-year-old murder, built a museum, reunited a family, and raised a daughter who wanted to be brave. Not bad for someone who'd started with nothing. But the truth was, she hadn't started with nothing. She'd started with desperation, with love, with the stubborn refusal to let anyone tell her what she was worth. Those things weren't nothing. Those things were everything. Sarah looked at the stars and whispered a prayer of gratitude. To her parents, who had raised her to believe in the impossible. To Mrs. Nguyen, who had given her $800 and asked for nothing in return. To Dr. Vasquez, who had believed her when no one else would. To Carol, who had taught her that it's never too late to find your truth. To Marilyn, who had trusted her without ever knowing her name. And to Hope. Always to Hope. The world was full of secrets, full of lies, full of powerful people who thought they could bury the truth and never face consequences. But it was also full of people like Sarah. Ordinary people who refused to stay silent, who chose courage over safety, who believed that truth was worth fighting for. One person could make a difference. Sarah had proven that. And as long as there were people willing to fight, the darkness would never win. Sarah closed her eyes and let herself rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new stories to tell, new truths to uncover. But tonight she was at peace. She had done what she set out to do. She had given Marilyn Monroe her voice back. She had given Carol Anderson her mother. She had given Hope a future. And she had given the world a reminder that the truth once spoken can never be silenced again. The stars shone bright over Malibu, over the museum, over the vault where secrets had slept for 62 years. Marilyn Monroe was finally at rest. And Sarah Mitchell, the pregnant woman who had gambled everything on an abandoned house, had proven something the world needed to remember. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. It's about one person deciding that truth matters more than safety. It's about refusing to let the darkness win. Sarah had done all of that. And because of her, the light would shine forever.